It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Carolina Panthers acquired former number 1 overall pick Baker Mayfield in a trade with the Cleveland Browns on Wednesday, sending a 2024 conditional draft pick. The Panthers will take on approximately $5 million of Mayfield's 2022 salary as the Browns pay $10.5 million. Mayfield will cover the remaining $3.5. Could make for an interesting week 1 matchup in Charlotte when the Browns visit the Panthers to kick off the season. The Nashville Predators' 2022-23 regular season schedule came out Wednesday. The 82-game slate starts in the Czech Republic against the San Jose Sharks on October 7th and 8th before the home opener in Bridgestone Arena October 13th against the Dallas Stars. A development in the case of WNBA star Brittany Griner as she pled guilty this morning in a Russian court of law for bringing hashish oil into the country, telling the judge she had no intent of breaking the law. Griner has been detained since February. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Welcome into 104.5 The Zone on this Thirsty Thursday. For those of you who celebrate, happy to have you guys in for the next 3 hours or however long this ride goes today. Lucas Panzica back there making it happen. Got an invader in the studio, even though his mic's not on yet, Lucas.
I forgot I got to push my own buttons around here now.
You are so privileged. What? Push your own buttons? That voice you hear, the subtle tones of one Ramon Foster, J. Martin Ramon. You just finished your show, 4 hours, the fastest in radio, I hear.
It can be that way, except middle of July.
So instead of getting through 4 hours of arduous July radio, you decided to come in here early.
Yeah. Actually, Buck, I'm all for a good time. Matter of fact, speaking of good times, can I shamelessly plug you real quick again?
Please.
I'm doing an event. I'm doing a pod with the Darren Bates, okay, on the Raw Room Report. And he was like, yeah, I think I got to go to a bowling event with Buck Rising and a bunch of expletives and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I didn't even hear it announced until the next day. So I'm like, Buck didn't tell me about his bowling event, but he told Darren Bates, and I see Buck daily.
Now wait.
I have been out of town, but still.
Now wait. 10 deep breaths, 20 short ones. Okay. Whatever gets your heart rate down faster. All right? Because we got a lot of ground to cover here. I was going to invite everybody at work to the bowling event that work is putting on, helping me put on, for an incredible charitable cause.
Very much so.
But when I realized that half of the workforce, the on-air workforce, is going to be where? In Atlanta, Lucas? For SEC Media Days for this? I was like, okay, well, maybe I just, we'll talk about it at some point. I don't want to bother these people. Everybody's got different things going on. So, yeah. Do you want to come to the bowling thing?
You damn right I'm there, okay?
Let's go.
And matter of fact, I was instigating this morning because I heard y'all had a little challenge thrown out yesterday, too. It was a pecking order of ranking. And you didn't think Jay was a great bowler.
Yeah, no, I don't think Jason's a good bowler. I love you, bud. He's down the hall. I don't think he can hear me right now.
Not right now.
Okay. Then, yeah, I think he's a terrible. He looks to me like he would be a terrible bowler, and you look to me like you would have your own bowl.
You know what? Now I feel like I need to go get one just to keep the standard. I need extracurricular activities out here, Buck, is all I'm telling you. Now, I might have to go get one, and the fact that you're throwing an event, and if there's an event and there's a sport involved, bowling is this sport we're talking about, because Vanderbilt has a damn good bowling team, women's bowling team, by the way. Yeah. I feel like we got to represent that, and I got to go be the guy. And I'm okay with going buying a new ball, Buck.
A new ball? Now, wait.
No, I should just say, well, it would be a new ball. Okay. I don't have an old ball.
Okay.
I got the old crusty, broken up, chipped up balls from the bowling alley.
Very nice.
We got to stop saying balls so much.
I mean, why? It's 10 o'clock. Anybody who would be offended by such things is probably already, well, I guess there's no taking kids to school right now.
They shouldn't be in the car right now.
Hell no. Get them out. Earmuffs from 10 to 1.
You say whatever you want to now.
We probably get a little too close from time to time. Ramon is here because there has been a significant trade. Yeah. One former first-round pick for first overall pick of the Cleveland Browns, now playing for the Carolina Panthers. But just to kind of put a bow on this bowling thing, what we're talking about, just for people who are listening who may not have heard, we are throwing a party at Brooklyn Bowl for an incredible cause that we are very excited to be in support of. The church at Mount Carmel is an organization in my neighborhood in North Nashville that puts on free summer camps for kids who don't necessarily have places to go during the summer or may not necessarily have the financial support system that would allow them extracurricular activities, as Ramon mentioned, during the summer. And they do it all off donations. So what we figured we'd do is I don't know how to do anything else but throw a party in a way to raise money. So I figure I put myself to work on this and, start to recruit some of my friends. So Darren Bates, Ramon Foster has now graciously lent his name to the cause. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. We have had several conversations with some exciting special guests. I talked to my buddy Joshua Black, comedian. He's going to be hanging out. And tickets are available at 1045thezone.com. What you get for that ticket, kids, is this, because the proceeds are going to charity. You get 3 hours of bowling at Brooklyn Bowl, which in and of itself, I think may be worth $60.
Yes.
You get food that will be provided for you throughout the duration of the event. And you get 2 drink tickets for you to have a good time. And then anything else beyond that, maybe I buy you a shot here or there, depending on how much money you're going to donate to the church at Mount Carmel.
Man,
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. But one, I'm excited to go to Brooklyn Bowl, by the way. I don't want to just continuously plug them, but since they're part of your event, Buck, I feel like we got to throw that out there. One, I didn't know about this place. I had somebody tell me about Brooklyn Bowl.
Lit.
Dude, and they have artists coming. I miss Big Crit. God, I'm a big fan of his.
Buddy, I saw Baby Keem there a couple of months ago.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah. Place is incredible.
How come I didn't know? I know I got kids and I got a busy schedule and stuff, Buck, but you got to at least shoot me a side text like, hey, Mon, this is going on.
My dude.
Come on.
Listen to me. Everyone on the air here at 104.5 The Zone has children but me. And I'm not saying that they're a blight. I'm sure everybody's kids are lovely. All right? Yeah. But I will say that they do oftentimes interfere with the planning of extracurricular activities that may not necessarily. So I don't in the same way that I was not going to bother my work friends.
That's real.
And asking them to come and, come to this party that I'm throwing, but I'm grateful for your presence anyway. I don't typically think to text you and Slay or Dawn or Blaine to come out with me to Baby Keem concert on a Thursday afternoon.
Well, at that time.
Does that hurt, Ramon?
A little bit. I'm going to be real with you because I'm all about inclusion and a good time. And Buck knows this. He knows I'm all for this.
Are you alleging that I am not inclusive?
Which is crazy because you didn't send the text, Buck.
Ramon's making good points.
You feel me, Lucas?
Who the hell are you back there? You don't say bleep to me for 3 hours.
Just a neutral observer.
He's the arbitrator right now. He's what Deshaun needs in his favor. Did I lie?
No.
I didn't spot one.
No, I didn't spot one. Look at you. You're glowing back there just to have somebody else in the bedroom with us. Look at you. This is unbelievable.
Not a part of this threesome.
No, he's trying to spice it up a little bit. He won't look me in the eyes anymore. He's gotten bored. That's terrible.
It's all good. But to Brooklyn Bowl, though, the Scarface is coming. By the way, this one of Run Slay. No, it's his favorite artist, favorite rapper in the world. And if you've ever listened to Scarface music from Houston, of course, but he's also just a full-fledged musicianist. He plays everything. Yeah. And he's supposed to be a Brooklyn Bowl. These tickets is $525.
Okay.
And that night, though, you speak about $60 lane, your night at Brooklyn Bowl, to get a lane is $250 that night.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This place it's a cool joint.
It's legit.
So wait, are we going to this concert with Slay?
I'm looking at tickets.
Ooh.
That's what I'm telling you.
$525, you say?
That's a cheaper one, but I know my guy liked the meet and greet aspect of it.
Okay,
so.
very nice. I think that's worth it.
If you again, I'm all for it. Buck, this life is built on what? Memories and how you affect people, right?
Look at that.
That's your happiness. That's what you do daily. Look, you bring up whether it's bad or good stuff. It's memories, okay? But that's what life is, dog. I'm like, okay, let's enjoy this thing. If I knew that Buck Rising had a supermodel that was coming into town that he was just gushing over, and I knew her. No offense to Dara, okay.
I thought you were, of course, referencing my lovely girlfriend, Dara Epstein, who I am very, very loyal to.
If Dara was in town.
What are you doing?
And I just had to, Buck, I know her through somebody.
That's right.
Agency. You need to go see her.
What a terrible reference that you've just made.
See, I'm trying to clean this up because I know
you did nothing but hurt me there.
But what I'm telling you is this. If there was somebody in the city that you knew was coming and you had to see them, you're like, okay, I gotta make this happen because
squad up.
Squad up.
I
saw you squadding up this weekend too.
Yeah, I
you
get around.
Decisions were made.
I get around.
I was about to tweet you, and I was like, I don't want to know, but
no. Listen, I ended up on Broadway. Damn it, this is not what we were here to talk about. This is how it goes so fast in the mornings.
I'm here next. Do you see what I'm saying?
It's nonsense.
Yeah. I got next segment with you too, so we're good.
Okay.
Tell me about Broadway. How
we're
was
cruising.
it?
Listen. If you are in the correct state of mind, Broadway can be everything that you need it to be. It can be a wonderful place. I'm sorry, Caleb, I didn't quite hear that. One more time. Jesus has nothing to do with that place.
No.
Nothing whatsoever. Caleb Farley, there may be I saw a Catch Up with Jesus t-shirt on Broadway at one of the the street like carts that also are selling fake joints, CBD joints that they're slinging out there. So I almost bought the Catch Up with Jesus shirt with the ketchup packets on the shirt. I got a kick out of that. But other than that, there is nothing spiritual about Lower Broadway.
No,
but
it's not.
After drinking several beers with the aforementioned Lucas Panzica,
yes sir,
I wanted to go out. Lucas did not want to go with me. Coward.
Debbie.
Now he's silent. Now he's back there hiding. What? Defend yourself.
Broadway is a once-a-year thing for me, maybe.
It's probably been 2 years.
Occasion.
Probably been 2 years since I've been out.
I bust a block down there about 2 months ago, and that was all I needed, Buck. I'm going to be real with you.
Oh, yeah.
So, about two times a year, you say?
Yeah. Once when you got people in town, and once when you got a full head of steam, and you're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, rage. There we go.
So yeah, we called it about 3:00 in the morning on Sunday, and then all of 4th of July, I did not move. Physically did not move.
You ain't wrong. I knew it was a good time. I heard Coach Mack on 3HL yesterday, and he was talking about. He was like, I was downtown, of course, Max flex like he does every once in a while.
This
Let
man.
You know, I was invited.
As if we don't know who you are, Mac. 35 years in the National Football League. Yeah, you get to go to the rooftop and watch the fireworks.
And just flexed on everybody. He said I was down there with 200,000 of my friends on Broadway. I was like, 200,000? Yeah.
No,
whatever.
300.
And what's crazy,
300.
I saw the Bussin' with the Boys video that they panned.
Yeah.
Dog.
It's nuts. It looked like the draft.
Why do you want to be down there with that many people if you don't have rooftop access or something exclusive, Buck?
So, few things that Coach Dave McGinnis, Ramon Foster, 11-year NFL veteran, and myself have in common. We don't got to get down there on the street.
Hey, now.
All right?
Hey, now. Oh.
But if you do, all right? Because there have been times in each of our respective lives when we have had that circumstance put in front of us, and I am sure that each of us have made a decision to go forth and sin no more, or, whatever you're doing in the middle of Lower Broadway. But yeah, now that I don't have to live that way, I don't live that way.
No.
But if I still had to, I would do that because I used to be out there.
What's your mindset, though? I've always fought to not be in the middle of the mosh pit, Buck. Because my size, number one, okay? Like, I'm bumping into people. That's why I hated bars. Like, stop bumping into me and stop asking me how's the weather up there. That's
not a thing that actual people say to you at a bar. Stop that.
Yes, Buck, it is.
How do you not choke slam somebody?
Same as it is down there. Stop. Let me get my drink and go.
Same it is. It's down there. He's got it rehearsed.
Yeah.
That's shameful. Do better.
Yeah, but the elbows and the sweating.
Yeah, sweating. Okay, I'm with you there.
You feel me?
Now I'm with you there. Again, my mindset has evolved in recent years.
There you go.
And due to to beneficial circumstances, I don't have to live that way. But the mindset, you ask me, I will tell you the mindset, and then we will talk about the mindset of two inept NFL organizations trading for one quarterback who I just can't for the life of me figure out why anybody wants, with Ramon Foster of J. Martin Ramon, 6 to 10 a.m. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Sure is. Welcome back. Got Ramon Foster in the studio kicking it with us. Always a pleasure to have the big fella in the house. We have discussed a variety of different subjects so far this morning, none of them having to do with football. I can see how easy it is for the fastest 4 hours in radio to go as it does.
Bunch of foolishness.
Each and every day. But at some point we have to talk about that. Speaking of foolishness, how about that for a transition? The Browns are dumb.
You speak my language.
They are very dumb, but I will tell you that I believe the Carolina Panthers to be equally dumb.
Yep.
Maybe not equally dumb in the sense that Carolina didn't give a $230 million guaranteed contract to an alleged sexual predator, but they tried to. Mm-hmm. They were one of the teams, as was Atlanta. I mean, hell, the Titans even sniffed around that.
Yeah, they did.
So let's be fair in that criticism.
There's fire for sure.
For sure. But if I was to tell you, let's just table the Brown slander for the time being.
Okay,
okay.
I'll be cool.
No. But we can slander, but we need to slander the Carolina Panthers. How many quarterbacks would you venture a guess to say that the Carolina Panthers have had since 2020, which is when Matt Rule took over?
The three obvious ones, of course, Cam. You got Baker now. You got Sam Darnold. Well, let's go. The young Corral is on the roster too. Teddy.
Correct.
Teddy. That's five. I would say 5 or 6.
PJ Walker.
PJ Walker
Who is PJ Walker?
PJ Walker is the XFL wonder that I don't believe is still in the league.
He's on the roster.
Is he still on the roster?
Yeah, and he started a couple games last year, right?
He sure did.
So that's 6 quarterbacks since 2020, since Matt Rule took over that program.
Wow.
They paid Teddy Bridgewater real money.
$64 million, I think, or $68.
68, but 33 guaranteed.
Oh.
The guarantee is what caught me up there, okay? Yes. That same year, that same 2020 season, you've got PJ Walker starting a game. They trade last season for Sam Darnold. They start 3-0, the Carolina Panthers did. They finished their year losing 7 straight and having won 5 games. Cam Newton started 5 games in the middle of that nonsense.
Yep.
You have Channing Crowder on the I Am Athlete podcast saying, Cam, you're not better than 32 quarterbacks in football right now.
You really dog Cam on that one, man.
I mean, somebody has to be honest with these people, but not like that.
Yeah, not like that. He dog Cam. You hadn't seen that boy. It wasn't even like super cringy. I thought it was just like he told his opinion and just stood by it.
No, he stood on it.
Yeah,
it was a legit like barbershop sports conversation.
Yeah.
Except the conversation was about one of the guys who was in the middle of the conversation about him being broke down.
Yeah.
So you draft Matt Corral this year in the 3rd round. Lucas, was he taken after Malik Willis or before Malik Willis?
I believe he was taken after, but
I believe you are correct in that, but still. So you got a 3rd-round quarterback, a 3rd-round rookie on the roster.
Malik Willis was what, 87?
He was 86th overall.
All right, Corral is 94.
Okay, but still, a relatively high draft pick on a quarterback. You have two guys now from the 2018 draft class. 1st round, you have the 1st overall selection and the 3rd overall selection now competing, quote unquote, for a starting job. What the hell are the Carolina Panthers doing?
Also picked up Sam Darnold's 5th-year option in that original trade, remember?
Yes.
That was a part of the trade. They picked up his 5th-year option. So they had plans for actually rehabbing him and keeping him, which is shameful, Buck.
Shameful. Beyond.
And also not just that, but they're not eating all of Baker Mayfield's salary. They're paying, about $5 and Cleveland's paying. He took a $3 million cut, I think is what it was.
He took a pay cut. Cleveland ate. So they split it in half. The $3 million came out of Cleveland's half of that portion, and then you have Carolina with the $5 million that they're going to pay to have Baker Mayfield on the roster while paying Sam Darnold.
It's silly to me, man. But it goes also into the conversation about having a quarterback, having I'll give it this too, a stable organization. The thing about Tepper was one of the minority owners for the Pittsburgh Steelers too before he ended up buying the Carolina Panthers. And what's wild about Tepper is he's operating in a fashion, if you look at it, as a guy with a whole lot of cash. I think they said he sold stocks to buy the Carolina Panthers in cash because when you got it, Buck, you got it.
No,
okay.
This is a guy who allegedly there was too much ball talk earlier. He allegedly has brass balls on his desk. David Tepper. This is something that he very much embodies.
Yeah, but I feel like they're almost operating the opposite spectrum of what the LA Rams are. Like, we know their owner is holding cash too, but he's operating with good players. What Tepper's trying to do is trying to jumpstart this organization with a seasoned, air quotation marks, with a seasoned veteran quarterback. But they've missed on him. And not just that. You go and get guys that's just not good. Like, I'm looking at Sam Darnold. He went to the Jets. They were 4-12 in his first year. Look at where our head coach was at the time, too.
Crazy
It
guys.
was just meant to fail. I said it this morning. If they had just really looked at the player and not just the potential of what he could do, he came out as a redshirt sophomore. So he only did like 3 years, played 2 at USC. And again, I know he was number 3 overall, but I think that was because he went to a bad team that needed a quarterback also.
Yeah.
And also looking at his coaching staff and what he had there, I think that's where the biggest issue comes from. That famous TV clip of him on the sideline, it may have been Monday Night Football, where he said, as a professional quarterback, Buck, you can't say that.
Shook.
You can't say that.
But here's why, and I'm going to have you articulate this in ways that somebody only with your experience could. From my standpoint, as a vulture, all right, as a media person, when I see that clip, I immediately have questions. And I understand that he's a young player and that you may not be a grown man until several years into your career, even if you are asked to have a significant amount of responsibility right out the gate. If I am hearing that, I am sensing mental frailty in that quarterback, and I am asking all the questions that I think need to be asked. If I am a player who, even if that doesn't get caught on a hot mic on Monday Night Football, and you're saying that casually on the bench while you're out there, how the hell are you supposed to have any belief in that guy?
You don't, Buck. And it's simply because I look at it as it's partially his fault for being a pro. Like, either spend more time than the coaches will with you, or it's mostly on the coaches.
Yeah.
His offensive coordinator, like, seriously couldn't have did him any favors. For him to not be prepared the way he should have been, I thought was just neglect. It was beyond neglectful. So for the Carolina Panthers to go try to invest in this guy after also paying Teddy Bridgewater that much money from him coming off that injury too. Like, that's the other side of it too, Buck, is Teddy was coming off that gruesome leg injury, and you decided to sign him to $64 million. That's middle-of-the-road quarterback money, but that guarantee was just over half of it. So that's to me, that's beyond silly, and a lot of these coaches get ahead of themselves and thinking they can correct something or fix everything that was possible before, and that's not how the NFL works either. Like, guys will break you down. Guys will find ways. Like, teams have scouts on top of scouts with a coach that is very smart. One of the biggest scouts in the room for us in Pittsburgh was Coach Tomlin.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same way for Coach Vrabel. Every little thing that you did in college, a lot of the times at the combine, they're not meeting with you because they want to draft you. They're meeting with you because they want to see what gets you to tick. What are you going to tell them your deficiencies? And Sam Darnold was that type of guy. So for Carolina to act that way as far as going to go get him, and not just that, going to get Teddy, and not just that, but going to get Baker Mayfield, who I think will also win that starting position when it comes down to it. I like Baker. I think he's a solid quarterback. He's the best thing the Browns have had.
Fair.
Okay?
Fair.
But Sam Darnold wasn't it. And now you got two guys that you're paying $18 million. Well, he's paying $18 million for this year with Sam Darnold. And you got $5 million with Baker Mayfield. On top of having a young guy, I think that can be very good for their program as far as Matt Corral goes. I'd much rather have had Matt Corral be the successor if you want to bridge somebody, because that's what Sam Darnold is. That's what they are. They're bridge guys until you get the guy.
Yeah.
So it's poorly run at this point, Buck. I think we saw that a little bit again. And you say we weren't going to slander the Browns, and I won't, but we kind of seen that.
No, we will. I just said we're going to start with the Panthers first.
You've seen that a little bit with the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. From high draft pick after high draft pick, from investing in one guy to another, they've yet to get on pace with each other or with the rest of the league. And I just think, again, as much hate as Ryan Tannehill gets, you got to say this, at least he's supported from a stable front office, from a stable head coach, from a stable position coach.
You don't worry about the infrastructure.
Yeah, you don't worry about the infrastructure, and that's the biggest thing. I said it earlier, Buck. I had 3 teams I was seriously considering when it came down to me being an undrafted guy. At that point, I could pick where I wanted to go. Jets, they offered me the most money, so I had to consider that. Pittsburgh, stable.
Yeah.
Knew that. And the other one was Cleveland. Okay? Cleveland recruited me, Buck, like I was in college. The scout was all over me, and I considered it strongly. But had I gone to Cleveland in 2009, dog,
I'm so happy that you didn't.
How many head coaches have they had?
Since 2009?
It's way too many to count.
I can't even begin to imagine.
So with a change of head coach, with a change of ownership, with a change of offensive coordinator, the players are bound to be unstable too. So it's on the front office and ownership as far as that stability. And I think we're seeing the exact same thing happen in Carolina.
Yeah. Ramon Foster hanging out with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Don't worry. We'll get to the Brown slander. We will get there. I promise you. It's the whole reason we invited you in. And also to talk about, what the hell the Browns are going to do at quarterback now.
No doubt.
But what we have at the moment, what are you waving your finger at me for?
I have a trivia question for you guys.
Okay.
Now, Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold have more interceptions than anybody else in the NFL since 2018. Would either of you care to wager how many combined interceptions Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold have thrown since the year 2018 when they were drafted?
Now, wait. The number, so you're saying that the two of them combined have thrown more interceptions?
No, they are number 1 and 2.
They are number 1 and 2. Okay.
Since 2018.
Dang.
Ramon, do you want to start?
I'll start. A
Combined.
bad year for a guy would be 14, 15. If you go 30 touchdowns and 15, that's, yeah.
So 18, 19, 20, 21.
Let's go
4 years.
40.
40 apiece?
40, you're saying 40 apiece.
40 apiece is
So
where I'm starting.
You're going
at.
about 80.
I am going to say total. I will just do it Price is Right. I'll go $1 over, Bob. Give me 81 interceptions.
The answer is 108 combined interceptions.
Woo!
Baker Mayfield has thrown 56. Now he has thrown over 90 touchdowns, but 56 interceptions since 2018. Sam Darnold has thrown 52 since 2018. Darnold has barely thrown more than that in touchdowns. He's thrown 54 touchdowns since 2018.
I'm so happy that we didn't do the thing that we do where we give you a number and then you way go under us and completely ruin the bit. Like, I'm so happy that we got the reaction of that god-awful number. All right, so let's get to now Cleveland because,
yes, sir.
By the way, it was lovely to be in the middle of the conversation and have Brett Batchelor, one of our fine production people, run in here with a list of Panthers quarterback recent history stuff. It's like having our own stats and info. I just yell down the hallway, Brett! Brings me a piece of paper with numbers on it. Cleveland is also dumb.
Yes.
Cleveland, bad teams stay bad. Bad teams give alleged sexual predators $230 million guaranteed.
Don't get me started.
Now they have a situation where they were ready for this, theoretically, maybe not for how bad it could potentially get, but they had put a plan in place to make this happen. You know Josh Dobbs as well as anybody probably in the league, both because of Tennessee allegiances and because he was on the Steelers while you were there. Mm-hmm. What is the thing that kind of, and I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position, but what's the thing that holds him back as a player that has not allowed him a greater opportunity when it comes to starting? Because Jake Brisket, Jacoby Brissett is not it.
No, it should be a one-to-one competition, if I'm being honest. What held him back in Pittsburgh? He was behind Ben. It's the same thing Mason Rudolph was behind. You know what I'm saying?
And Ben was durable at that time. But I think, I mean, he had opportunities in Jacksonville, and hasn't been able to. He just, I think that's an important point to bring up. Though.
That's a good point. So when you in that situation, and so you hadn't had the reps, that's what kind of throws you for a loop. And Jacksonville, he had Gardner Minshew, Minshew Mania and all those types of things. He already had an in with the coaches. Josh is a great guy to have in your room as far as what he can bring to it, meaning he see the game very well. I think Josh can be in this league as long as Chase Daniels. As long as Brian Hoyer. I think I saw an article, Chase Daniels was over $41 million now his time. We came in together, and he was undrafted.
That's stupid.
Backup quarterback.
Good for him.
Stupid. Yeah, good for him, man. But with Josh is the ability to get on the field. And most of the time, he's going in a position where he's already the backup and nobody's gotten injured. Sad to say that, but that's the opportunity hadn't met itself. I remember Josh coming in the game for us in Baltimore on the road, and when he came in, it was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
And it was only for one play, but it was so crazy. Coach Randy Finkner has so much confidence in Josh Dobbs because he does have those tools. And it's the same thing that's kind of snake bitten him when he was at Tennessee. Practice is okay, but in the game, he's a freaking gamer.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, you really got to kind of show that. It's not like college where you got to be on roster. That's not the case, and Josh hasn't been given those opportunities. I think he can make the plays. I think his style is what the NFL is moving towards right now. Anyway, he's mobile enough. He can make the plays. He's smart enough. It's just simply not given the opportunity. Jacoby Brissett is what, again? A proven commodity in this league.
I know that if I need a player to start a couple of games for me, Indianapolis, New England, what was last year? Behind Tua.
Miami, yeah.
Jacoby Brissett is something that the NFL knows I can get a couple of games out of him.
And it's the same thing. Why would teams continue to sign Jason Peters at tackle at 39, almost 40 years old? When you see Jason Peters, like, you're not him.
Well, also because the Bears are dumb.
Exactly.
A lot of dumb teams.
But they could have went and got any young guy, but they knew he was proven, and that's where Josh is kind of falling into. I hate it for him, but again, Buck, when it comes to him being in the league at that backup position, he could be there for a long time, and he might get his shot the same way Charlie Batch did later in his career, where he get 4 or 5 games. But again, until he go a full 16, that's just going to be his role, and it ain't a bad role to be in. And it's 32 position for those guys, too. Heck, 64, considering you got 2 active backups for the most part.
I'm fascinated. It's going to give me a reason to go back and pay attention. I'll obviously be working that Sunday, but before the Titans and the Giants kick off in week 1, and this game is at noon, Browns and Panthers, I'm going to be very interested to see how this goes. You brought up Baker and his skill set as a quarterback. Baker, to me, is going into a system that works for what Baker needs, right?
Yep.
You need a dynamic rushing attack. Theoretically, they have Christian McCaffrey and Deontay Foreman. You have a situation where there's going to be plenty of play action passing, which is something that, here in Tennessee is a successful operation for Ryan Tannehill. It's quite common.
And they got guys that can go deep
across the league. So this is a situation where theoretically Baker should be able to do well. But that's assuming that Matt Rule is capable of maximizing a quarterback. And I have seen precious little evidence of Matt Rule being competent enough to maximize a quarterback. Every time I catch any of their press conferences, it sounds like, we use the Always Sunny in Philadelphia bit, Pepe Sylvia, all the time, Lucas.
You want to talk about stress? You want to talk about stress? Okay? I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress?
That's what I hear every time Matt Rule does a press conference. Like, you guys don't see it yet, but when you see it, you're going to get it.
Like the Jay-Z line.
Yeah, that's exactly
Jay-Z
right.
7 years. You ain't him.
So, and then there's Ben McAdoo, who has a noted, just disdain for Baker Mayfield as a prospect coming out of the 2018 draft class. And he's already making screw-ups like at the press conference, Lucas, when he's talking about who will be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers in ways that you would never, ever hear any other competent coach say publicly.
You look at Stam as your starting quarterback?
Sam is our starting quarterback, yes.
So that's part 1. Ooh. Now, can I hear part 2? Because
one of the things I've been working on is being better talking to you people. So, announcing the starting quarterback here, I just put my foot in the mouth. So that wasn't something I should have said, but
you can't write that kind of dumb.
How did I even miss that, Buck?
Oh, well,
Oh, my.
Like you said, you had vacation recently.
That was months ago, too. That was like 2 months ago. Maybe
it was during OTAs.
He's in over his head is what he is as
That's
a
good.
NFL head coach. Again, a lot of people fall in love with the idea that college coaches can bring that. I think the college system can navigate itself up to the NFL coaches. It's rare that those college coaches understand how that locker room is, how a 31-year-old Aaron Donald is in the locker room, how a 27-year-old running back is dealing with the idea that, look, I'm over 25, I'm over 26. I need to be able to make this team. Or Christian McCaffrey, he probably doesn't even know how to manage him during the year. I'd love to know what his practice reps was like. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of that in which a guy like Matt Rule, who's coming from Baylor, doesn't understand the league. Like, Buck, ask any NFL coach. You'll ask Vrabes, what would you rather do? Coach in college or coach here? He'd probably say, put me here all day long.
Yeah.
You know,
he's lived that life.
It's a different life, and Matt Rule continuously just drops the ball.
Speaking of Brett, what do I call this? It used to be Panzika Stats and Info, and then you got lazy. It's Bachelor Stats and Info?
Bachelor Stats.
Bachelor Stats. All right. Brett Bachelor is just running another sheet for us. I love this. With Baker heading to the Panthers, this is courtesy of Sports Illustrated. There are some quotes from Ben McAdoo from the 2018 season, which is, of course, or the 2018 draft process, which is, of course, when Baker came out. In 18, Mayfield entered the NFL draft as a top quarterback prospect after starting 3 seasons at Oklahoma. Although McAdoo wasn't on a coaching staff that year, which I love, he still scouted the quarterbacks and made his own assessment. He's got an edge to him. I like that. He's going to lead. They're going to follow him. I didn't see a lot of pro-style football in his college tape, and if you're short, you have to be able to make up for it somehow, some way, and personality doesn't do that. I didn't think he was a great athlete. This guy is kind of like a pocket quarterback that is short and with small hands. That's what I worry about. Meet your new offensive coordinator, babe. Thank you very much, Bachelor Stats and Info.
Hey, way to go, McAdoo.
The best part is he now relies on that guy to save his job.
Yeah.
So,
those two need to rely on each other because they're both bordering on unemployment in the very near future.
So, considering he's got a short quarterback and you got to be able to make up for it some way, somehow.
That's right.
What you about to do, McAdoo?
Nothing.
Next press conference, he's a lot taller in person.
I hear it already.
Before we let you finally get on with your day, and we appreciate Ramon Foster's time.
I enjoy this, man.
Well, good. What is the most interesting division in football for you this year?
AFC West.
By a
Hands
mile.
down, by a mile.
Okay.
AFC West. Kansas City can't count them out because why? Unlike Carolina, they have a quarterback, okay? It's AFC West and NFC East. Both those two right there kind of get me. I think everything else is kind of settled, or it's like, yeah, I can see whatever happens. But considering you got the Chargers, okay, you got the Broncos' new quarterback. You also got Kansas City, okay, and then you have the Oakland. You have not Oakland, that's a demerit.
It's okay.
Las Vegas.
We don't write people up around here.
with a new wide receiver. Just the quarterbacks to wide receiver aspect of that division, man. It's going to be interesting to see how the defenses work. It's going to be interesting to see how those quarterbacks gel with those guys and just how high performance it could be. And the same thing that teams that have 4 good teams, how much they're going to beat themselves up. I could see 3 coming out of that division. And I really couldn't tell you who the bad 4th one. You know what I'm saying? As far as the wild card goes, as far as those 4 teams making it out into the playoffs, it's going to be sticky. And then as far as the East goes, man, like seriously, can Carson Wentz do something with the Commanders? And can the Cowboys really get over the hump, too? Whatever happened to the Giants, I'm not into that either. Yeah. But that and then Philly with AJ, who now has an all-star team. How is
so did Vince Young.
Those 3, it was former Titans.
The Eagles, I remember, yeah.
So how the Cowboys, who always are on TV, the Commanders, who's got a new quarterback, and how Philly, who's got all the toys and tools, but a second-round quarterback in Jalen Hurts that needs to figure out, look, they're really saying you're bulletproof this year as far as what you needed. Now go do something with it. We might end up seeing a free agency next year. I would say Lamar there, but I think Lamar is going to get paid. I can't see Baltimore letting them go like that. But AFC West and NFC East.
You know who I think is the 4th best team in the AFC West this year?
Who's that?
Denver.
Ooh.
I do. We're going to talk about what the most interesting divisions in football are coming up next. Ramon Foster, 6 to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday, 104.5 The Zone. Also, the Ramon Foster Show, available wherever it is that you get your podcast. My man is out here grinding in this media vulture game.
I got to get my Buck Risings on, man.
Well, listen, you start wearing blue light glasses. It helps with the migraines from screen time. See you, buddy.
See you, Buck.
Welcome back. Always a pleasure to have Ramon Foster hanging out in here with us. 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. So, Ramon Foster thinks the most interesting division in football is a tie between he picked an AFC conference or an AFC division and an NFC division. Can you do that? Are we allowing that? That's like having an AFC team and an NFC team.
I do hate people that do that.
Right? So I don't know. You're the arbiter of the show.
But no, you can pick interesting divisions from both conferences.
I think you're playing favorites because you love Ramon.
Mm-hmm. Play both sides, so I always come out on top.
That's smart. So I think that he's made some points there that I find valid because he said the AFC West and the NFC East. The NFC East, to me, I hate watch. Like, if I'm home, if the Titans have a bye, or, if they play Thursday night or Monday night and I've got a Sunday to kind of kick it, I will hate watch NFC East games because I find them to be pure comedy. Because nobody finds a way to blow a game like an NFC East team. I was watching Dallas choke away. The NFL Network is on here in the studio right now. They're showing a replay of the 2012 AFC title game. Ravens, Broncos, Peyton Manning, Joe Flacco, and the coverage bust with, who's number 12? Jacoby something that caught just an absolutely unbelievable touchdown pass to end that game. I was watching an NFL Network replay earlier this week or something like that. Cowboys, Packers. And Dak Prescott gets him down the field. This had to be a couple of years ago, actually, because Jason Garrett was still the coach. Cowboys get him down the field. Jason Garrett's going for it on fourth down. He's playing aggressively. Okay, you're playing Aaron Rodgers, go for the throat. They leave about 45 seconds left on the clock, and they have an ungodly coverage bust, and Aaron Rodgers just rips it right through their secondary. All of a sudden, Packers come out with a win in Dallas in just utterly devastating fashion. So I will say that especially having a semi-local tie of A.J. Brown, I'm going to hate watch some NFC East games, just out of curiosity. The West is probably going to be the most interesting. The AFC West is going to be the most interesting division in football. I think we're all in agreement with that, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Easily, top to bottom.
Because I do maintain that Russell Wilson's thing for me, just because we're going to talk about this, the Titans are going to play that entire division. They're going to have Denver and Vegas here in Nashville. They're going to travel to the Chargers and the Chiefs. One of those is a Sunday night football game at Arrowhead, if memory serves. I believe Russell Wilson thinks he's Drew Brees. And while Russell Wilson is good, is an above-average player at the position, he is not Drew Brees. I feel that team has the highest hill to climb of any of the four that are in the AFC West this year. I don't think Russell Wilson is nearly as good as his name gives him credit for, even as I believe him to be an above-average alternative at quarterback, right? Because Pete Carroll gets hit over the head a lot. And listen, they're going to get dragged this year because they have Geno Smith and Drew Lock competing for a quarterback spot. So much so that the rest of the sports world, like with Twitter accounts like the U.S. Open, publicly mocking Seahawks fans who try to come for tennis as a sport. No. You're going to watch 17 games of the Geno coaster this year. Godspeed. But Pete Carroll gets hit over the head a lot with he doesn't adapt. He doesn't change his style of play. You know who Pete Carroll reminds me of? Obviously, there's a significant age difference, but in terms of the criticisms of him as a coach, can you guess? Active coach in the league, but younger. Who would you most compare Pete Carroll's style to?
Philosophically, as far as the stubbornness goes of not being willing to change, I think
call it stubbornness,
yeah,
if you want. But that is a knock. That is a perceived knock of Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I don't think this is where you're going with this, but I'd say Brandon Staley in a completely different way because I don't think Staley will ever venture from what he believes philosophically as a head coach, and I think that will always hold back the Chargers just like it did last year. He was the reason they're not in the playoffs last season.
Well, I mean, that also assumes that he's not going to learn, right? You can be married philosophically to a certain style of play and also learn from mistakes.
Yeah, he's a young coach, but I think that I just feel like he's married to something analytically that fundamentally will never change with him. But I don't think that's the direction you were going.
Jimmy Wheeler on YouTube, on the Zone TV chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, says Cliff Kingsbury. No, I would disagree. I believe Pete Carroll to be, by any metric, a top 10 football coach, right? Both based off career longevity and success with several different franchises in the league. I believe that Pete Carroll's best comparison in a younger body is Mike Vrabel. I think that Mike is very, very much married philosophically to what they do. I think that he does not necessarily, Mike Vrabel, while he understands the game at a more granular level than probably most of his peers, what's been the biggest criticism of Mike as a defensive head coach, where there are precious few of those guys running around the league? Or at least this was a conversation around his hiring in 2018. Mike Vrabel can't give you maybe the advantage on the sideline as far as making your offense go that Sean McVay can or Kyle Shanahan can. Kyle Shanahan, another one who has a stubborn or has tendencies that he is set in that may not always work to the benefit of his team that he's coaching, but is obviously a successful coach. Now, Vrabel has a higher winning percentage than a considerable amount of good coaches in the league. Mike Vrabel just wins games. Mike Vrabel makes the playoffs. But I think that in Pete Carroll, where the criticisms are stubbornness, runs the football too much, doesn't let Russ cook. If you go look at the metrics on Seattle in the last couple of years, they have very, very much evolved what they do to try and let Russell Wilson cook. And it hasn't worked because Russ plays off schedule. I bet if you ask wide receivers around the league if they like playing with Russell Wilson, hell, a Titan fan favorite, right? Golden Tate. If you called up Golden Tate and said, hey, what was it like to play receiver with Russell? When you got a quarterback running around off schedule like that, and he's going to make these incredible throws off platform, and they're going to, he's going to be chucking into your end zone desperately at the end of that. Golden Tate or whomever, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I don't want to single out Golden Tate. I obviously haven't talked to Golden. But I bet the criticism, one of the biggest criticisms would be in an honest moment, yeah, it throws us off. It makes it harder to play receiver because you don't know where that guy's going to go. It's not timing. It's not precision. It's not Drew Brees-like accuracy. There is a frenetic motion to Russell that while it is highly successful and will be more successful than not, Russell Wilson thinks he's Drew Brees, and he's not. I think that the marriage in Seattle was going to end either way. I think Pete Carroll and that staff did as much as they could to keep Russell Wilson happy. And ultimately, we'll see if whatever he's seeking is what he's able to find in Denver. I don't think it's going to look much different, to be honest with you.
Best roster he's had in a while.
Seattle's defenses have not been what the Legion of Boom was, right? Where you're talking about historically great. And obviously the sport's even evolved since Russell was. But it's like Patrick Mahomes last year, right? Chiefs getting their ass kicked. They came here and lost, 27-3? Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And a defense that ended up playing down the stretch like one of the better ones in football. What would you say the biggest issue with Patrick Mahomes and that offense was?
Last season?
Yeah, early. For example, when they played the Titans.
Turnovers?
Okay, but undisciplined play from the quarterback. You just need him to settle down. You don't need to be making these horizontal, your body's going horizontal, throwing off platform throws from all kinds of weird arm angles. Just settle in the pocket and make the throw. Mahomes settled in. They were having him check the ball down more. Just going through your progressions. You don't necessarily need to just start drifting to your right if the pressure's not there. These kind of things, while it is, you don't want to completely coach things like that out of a player that is special. Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes are that. You don't want to completely remove that from what it is that they do. But it can also work to your detriment. And I think if you have a quarterback like Russell who clearly believes that he is going to be able, and rightfully so, he's Mr. Unlimited, right? Mr. Unlimited. Well, if Mr. Unlimited can't play the position with the required discipline on top of making spectacular plays, then it's not as big a net positive as you think a player like that should be. It's a super interesting division, though. Weren't we supposed to talk about the Saints here? What happened?
We're going to talk about the NFC South. I don't know. You started talking about Russell Wilson.
That's interesting. Ramon was right. He completely stole my thunder. Lucas had this whole block. He wanted to carry the Saints' water. Jameis Winston, the second coming. And here I've stole your thunder. I'm sorry.
Everybody's just stealing thunder.
Well, we can still talk about the NFC South to some degree, because I want to talk about something Coach Dave McGinnis said yesterday on 3HL about a team showing worse dysfunction than the Cleveland Browns. You're going to hear that coming up next.
It is 11 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzika. If you missed it yesterday from the Superbook.com sports desk, the Carolina Panthers acquired former number 1 overall pick Baker Mayfield in a trade with the Cleveland Browns on Wednesday, sending a 2024 conditional draft pick that could be as good as a 4th rounder. The Panthers take on approximately $5 million of Mayfield's 2022 salary, as the Browns will pay $10.5 million, and Baker Mayfield having to cover the rest, about $3.5 million. Be an interesting week 1 matchup in Charlotte when the Browns visit the Panthers to kick off this season. The Nashville Predators' 2022-23 regular season schedule came out on Wednesday. The 82-game slate starts in the Czech Republic against the San Jose Sharks October 7th and 8th before the home opener in Bridgestone Arena October 13th, taking on the Dallas Stars. NHL draft starts tonight with the first round. The Preds currently hold the 17th pick. Coverage starts at 6 on ESPN. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Welcome in on this Thursday to 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back if you've been kicking it with us so far. Hope you're having a great Thursday. Get you a little closer to the weekend. A short work week for all of us, but it's July, so I know we want to get you there just a little bit faster if we can. Lucas Panzica making it happen. Mike Golic Jr. going to be on the show at 12:20 today. Need to get into some details on not just college conference realignment, as we've been discussing basically for the better part of a week now, but a report done by the Los Angeles Times on why exactly it was essential. I mean, basically do or die. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. For UCLA, specifically UCLA, to bolt for the Big Ten, and why that's going to affect a great many other conferences or other programs in conferences that are looking to kind of shake things up a little bit, or having to because of necessity. 615-737-1045. We would be happy to have your participation throughout the course of the show. So I want to ask you a question. You, listening in your car, listening on Zone TV, maybe you're watching the show today, you're streaming on the app, whatever, wherever you may be. I want to ask you a question. If I say to you the phrase NFL dysfunction, what is the first organization that pops into your mind? They're one in particular, like just that word association. When I say to you, dysfunction as a professional football organization, one of 32, what logo do you see in your head?
I don't know how it can't be the Browns. I don't know how any other franchise in the league could have a more of an argument than the Browns.
There is a more sustained sample size than, for example, the second on that list for many people, which would be Jacksonville. Jacksonville has been wildly incompetent over a sustained period of time. They do also recently have an AFC Championship game appearance in the Blake Bortles era. But I think you give people, I think that there is a stigma around the Browns that should and does bring that name association, that brand association to mind. When I say NFL incompetence, NFL dysfunction, I think that there are several different organizations that you can choose from. I find the Bears to be a wreck, an utter wreck. I think what has happened in Chicago, basically since they fired Lovie Smith, it's almost been the better part of a decade now since Lovie Smith was the head coach of the Chicago Bears, fired after a double-digit win season. I think the Bears have been an utter disaster. Again, a smaller sample size. So maybe the best answer, you could look at the Rams. The Rams, before they moved to Los Angeles, before their owner, it has been alleged there is litigation with the city of St. Louis over the owner, Stan Kroenke, basically actively tanking them as an organization so that they could move to L.A. as a means to get out of their lease, as a means to make it, less of an issue when they skip town, even though many people in that area of the country are still pissed at the Kroenke family for what they did. But I think that the Carolina Panthers need a seat at the table when it comes to dysfunction. Because I think that them trading for Baker Mayfield, the Titans, in the last, if you're going 10 years, right? There has been now more stability in the last 10 years of Titans football than probably at any point since heyday Jeff Fisher, right? Because there has been 6 years now of John Robinson heading into 7. There's been 4 years of Mike Vrabel heading into 5. And they have largely, even under Mike Mularkey, stabilized in that 2016-2017 season. So there's been a more sustained sample size of success. But many people, I think, would bring up Tennessee as an organization that for a long time was wildly incompetent. I think Carolina is the next on this list.
But is that because of the Baker Mayfield? Does that push that over the top for you? Because I don't see how that can tie into dysfunction. They needed a quarterback. They went out and got the only quarterback that gives them any sort of chance to win.
Agreed. Indianapolis only does not have Baker Mayfield on their roster because Matt Ryan kind of got spurned because of this whole Deshaun Watson suitor situation.
Yeah. And the Panthers were able to do it without paying with only paying $5 million of his $18 million salary.
It's not about the straw that broke the camel's back, although it is the latest in a series of miscalculations. Again, I say to you, they gave Teddy Bridgewater $33 million guaranteed, a $60+ million contract. They started a game of P.J. Walker in the middle of that. They gave Teddy a bunch of cash coming off a devastating injury. They traded him the very next offseason. They brought in Sam Darnold. They picked up his fifth-year option. It's an incredibly expensive price tag, even if it is a rookie quarterback contract. That's dumb. That indicates to me that they don't have a plan. They brought back Cam Newton after Sam Darnold was clearly washed, even as he's young in his career. First-round picks continuing to get chances. Hell, they're still giving Cam Newton chances. After they cut him not a year ago, not a year leading up to the point where Cam had to start 5 games for them again, and another P.J. Walker start mixed in with that. They trade the 6th round and the 2nd round and a 4th round pick to the Jets for Sam Darnold. That's substantial draft capital for a quarterback who has done nothing but stink. Darnold was 4-7 last year, and this is according to the Bachelor stats and info that Brett Bachelor was kind enough to provide me earlier in the show. They have now given up a conditional 5th round pick for Baker at still a considerable cost. They have shown no plan at the most important position, other than we're going to take a bunch of dudes who have been in the league for a hot second and had a first-round draft grade on them, not even by our own coaching staff, by the way. Shout out Ben McAdoo, who is most recently on record on Baker Mayfield saying, yeah, he didn't think he was going to be able to function at a pro level because he's short and has small hands. That guy's now Baker's offensive coordinator. So when I heard Coach Dave McGinnis yesterday talking about the Browns and talking about how much better a situation it was for Baker to go to from Cleveland to Carolina, it's the only time in my life I think I have just abjectly disagreed with the great Coach Dave McGinnis.
You knew he wasn't going back to Cleveland. I mean, he said as much, but the way that thing was starting to play out, I mean, they were both done with each other. And really, seriously, I mean, you know, when he was there, they had a good team, but they did not have a good organization. I mean, that was as dysfunctional as you could be in. You remember the year that we went there to open up the season, and they were preordained as Super Bowl champions, and that was so dysfunctional. And that, you know, the whole city bought into it. Yep. And then we went. The Titans went in there and just boat raced them.
Yep.
All afternoon, and then it completely fell apart from them. That was Freddie Kitchens as the head coach, and I mean, it completely fell apart. And of course, your quarterback is going to take a lot of heat, you know, for that. And then last year, you know, the guy played injured. I still think the guy's a good quarterback. Yeah. I really do. He's a gamer. You know, he's a competitor. And so I'm sure that he's completely thrilled to be out of there. Now, I don't know what type of situation he's going into there at Carolina. I don't think it's as dysfunctional as the situation that he is leaving. But
couldn't be.
Look, it couldn't be. And he was more than willing to give up some money, some guaranteed money. I mean, he was guaranteed 18.5 whether he did anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he was willing to give up 3.5 of that to be able to go in. And of course, you know, Cleveland's got themselves to blame for this whole situation because, you know, they guaranteed a guy $230 million that they don't even know if he can play yet or not.
Unbelievable.
So Baker, it really is unbelievable. So Baker is completely happy to be out of there, and I am sure that now with Sam Darnold down there, if he goes in there and they embrace him, which I'm pretty sure they will, and he goes in there with the right attitude. And let me just say this. When the Titans went and got Tannehill, he came in here with the right attitude because when John Robinson sat him down and said, look, you're going to come in here as the backup. Are you good with that after being an 88-game starter? And he said, absolutely. I will come in and do anything I can to help this team. And he did. So he won the trust of his teammates before he was ever a starter. Then he takes over. And since a starter, he's taken over as a starter. Well, the Titans are 30-13, have been to the playoffs, have won the division, but you know haven't had any success in the playoffs. But I would venture to say, again, I'm not a real smart man, but I would venture to say that the Panthers would be very happy if they could have that out of Baker Mayfield.
It's the only time I've disagreed with Coach Mack in my life. Because here's the thing: the Browns. Even as I find their decision-making wild, just absolutely wild in what they have done this offseason, in trading for Deshaun, in handling their dealings the way that they've handled them. Morally, to put aside morals, because frankly, morals have no place in football, as the league has shown you time and time again. They have a plan. They have a plan at quarterback. They have a plan to upgrade the position. They had a plan for when he wasn't going to play this year, in all likelihood. They have a plan. While they may be the most historically dysfunctional franchise that we have had over a sustained period of time in professional football, the Browns have a plan at quarterback. And just purely from the football sense, what Carolina has done is just throw a bunch of stuff at a wall and not won more than 5 games in each of the last 3 seasons. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Let's start with John, who's in Murfreesboro. Hello, John.
What's up, guys? First off, Buck, I'm going to disagree with you about Carolina, and I say this all as a Saints fan. I've watched Carolina for years, and Carolina, at one point, Carolina was running the division. There was the mid-2010s. They were the first team to win that division back-to-back. They won it 3 years in a row from 2013 to, I think it was 2015. They won it with a losing record. Like, they're not the most dysfunctional team. They're going through a rough patch, and I'm not here to deny that, but they've been around since, 96?
Yes.
95, 96. Like, they've been to a couple of Super Bowls since then. Like, they've vastly outperformed what I think normal expectations would be for them. But the most dysfunctional franchise has got to be Detroit. Detroit had a daggum Hall of Fame quarterback in Matt Stafford and a Hall of Fame wide receiver in Megatron and still couldn't do anything.
Detroit belongs in this conversation.
They make missteps left, right, and center. Matt Stafford leaves the team and goes and wins the Super Bowl. And I realize the Rams were a quarterback away, but Detroit has the same ability to draft and sign free agents that LA does. They have the same. They get the same pool of players. Detroit has underperformed horribly since they're in. Like there's not a worse team than Detroit.
No, it's fair. Thank you for the call, John. 615-737-1045. Detroit absolutely belongs, has a seat at this table. Here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that historically Carolina is more dysfunctional than any other organization in the league. I'm saying that Carolina in its current iteration belongs in this conversation because I believe them to have zero plan whatsoever. 615-737-1045. I think we can get into some detail on this. We'll also hear from Greg Cosell on Baker Mayfield as a player, what kind of threat that may pose in the NFL, if any, and get into a little bit of this dysfunctional NFL talk because I think people have a lot to say on this. Your phone call's on it next.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Welcome back. Yes, many thanks to Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Not only do they make this radio show possible, they make all of our conversations and content possible. Check out the podcast, by the way, speaking of content and conversations, if you miss any of the 3 hours of the show. Now, we're talking about dysfunctional organizations in the NFL. And I had asked you, listening wherever you're listening, what is the logo of an NFL team that pops into your mind's eye when I tell you dysfunction in football? Cleveland, a fair nominee. We've had Detroit submitted. And I contend that Carolina, in the last 3 seasons, under Matt Rule and David Tepper as the ownership group, I believe them to be dumb. I believe them to be dysfunctional. I believe them to have no plan and no necessarily solution to fix this. And it's only brought to the forefront for me because of their latest trade to add yet another of the 2018 first-round draft picks at quarterback into the mix when they have currently 5 quarterbacks on the roster and have been through 6 in total as starters throughout the course of the last 3 years under Matt Rule. Now, we'll get your phone calls on this here in a second. But, Lucas, I want you to pull up the YouTube chat where people can interact with us on Zone TV. And I want you to read the commentary left there by Tony_the_stud on YouTube, okay? Because he has some career advice for you that I'd like you to read.
Oh, really?
Now, again, I don't know how comfortable you are getting close to language on FCC airwaves. I don't know if I want to put you in a compromising position because there is some language in there that you might have to dodge. But I would like you to read the constructive criticism that has been submitted for you.
Tony the Stud in the YouTube chat says, I'm getting tired of Buck and Lucas playing that stupid music over people who make excellent calls. Whoever that caller was, I appreciate it, man. You made some good points. It sucks they had to cut you off like that for their own moral values. You guys know how hard it is to make a point in 60 seconds. For real, you guys need to get a grip, Buck.
And that neglects be cool and play that stupid music. God, I hate you guys for that. It's the most annoying thing on sports radio. Just let people talk, you asshats, is what he says to us.
I missed that one.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make sure you got that one in too.
Well, I appreciate Tony the Stud. He listens to, I think, every show on the Zone. He regularly calls in. Look, man, just got to be able to land the plane. That's all. But there has to be rules around here. Otherwise, we live in chaos.
All right, so you're being diplomatic about this, and I appreciate that. Let me make a statement here and now before we get back to the phones on NFL dysfunction and before we hear from Greg Cosell on Baker Mayfield and what he brings to the table at this stage in his career. We got rules, okay? If you exceed 60 seconds on the phone, we play the music. I'm not trying to do a 3-hour radio show where people tune in to listen to you call in on a car phone as you drive around. Now, I'm not trying to discourage that either. I think there's comedic value in the Oscars music, and most people, the vast majority of people, in fact, we have tremendous callers who I think get what we do. But every once in a while, somebody got to wander in to the YouTube chat and act like they know what to do better than we know what to do. And I will tell you this. It kind of sounds like Stephen A. and Kevin Durant. You don't want to make an enemy out of me. You remember that? It's one of the craziest things I've seen on television. Laugh out loud funny. But here's what I'll tell you. If you don't like it, go somewhere else, man. Like, I got nothing for you. If you are actually bothered by the idea that we're looking to get a laugh out of somebody who just all of a sudden may not have listened to the show and here's Oscar music playing under somebody, just to use a caller on the line, Derek in Lebanon screaming at me about A.J. Brown being traded to the Eagles, and you don't find that comedically funny, you need to take this stuff vastly less serious.
And we just need to keep it moving, Show's got to keep moving.
I got a show to do. Now, I've wasted entirely too much time chastising one person on the internet who is too thick to comprehend what exactly we are doing around here. But I do feel that every once in a while, I just feel that like we need to rise up and we need to step on somebody like that just clearly either takes this too seriously or thinks they know how to do it better than we know how to do it. Have I sounded pretentious enough?
Enough.
Okay, very good. Derek in Lebanon is next. Hello, Derek.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. I would say the biggest one that speaks out to my mind when you ask the question is the Commanders. And the reason I say this is because of Dan Snyder and everything that he's done when it comes to all this legal dispute. And on top of that, what they did on for Sean Taylor in his memorial that they had, and I forget little Mahomes, not Patrick, but his little brother, and he's dancing on
Jackson,
it, and they
yes.
didn't tell the family. Yeah, it's just I think that's a huge dumpster fire, has been a long time, and I think they're at the head of the table, Buck. And also to what you guys were just saying, I'd say, hey, y'all just hold yourselves and us, your listeners, to a higher standard. So appreciate it, and I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Thanks, very. God, he hit all the notes.
He gets it.
But he hit all the notes. He made me happy with every sports talk radio thing that you could do.
Did he just make a point in less than 60 seconds?
By God, I think he did.
He got it under 45.
Give this man an award. Bravo, Derek in Lebanon.
So it is possible.
Thank you for not being inconvenienced by the subtle sounds of our Oscars music. He's right, though. Washington's a bleep show.
In the workplace, especially. We're taking into account football, right? We're going general manager, head coach, locker room. But as far as the totality of the workplace goes, yeah, I don't see any that hold a candle to what's happened at Washington.
All right, so and Dan Snyder's been in power how long? He's had this team for the better part of 2 decades, I think, at this point. As the primary owner. I know that there are ownership stakes in the Washington football team, Skins Commanders, that now play in a stadium that leaks raw sewage from time to time if you're sitting under the upper deck. There's a lot there, though, because Tate, I think that, there's a lot more bad teams than there are good ones, it turns out, and all with varying degrees of dysfunction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I don't think we should confuse dysfunction with incompetence or just being bad at your job, right? To me, dysfunction...
I don't think those things necessarily have to be mutually exclusive.
No,
you can be dysfunctional and be incompetent.
They overlap all the time. But when I think dysfunction, I'm thinking misalignment from ownership to general management to coaching to the locker room. And there's one team that we are completely ignoring that is in the AFC South that are not the Jacksonville Jaguars in this.
Ooh. Houston?
The most mystifying coaching search of this past coaching carousel, which is one of the craziest in recent NFL history, was the Houston Texans. When they hired David Culley, he completely overachieves any and all expectations. They unceremoniously fire him after a year and then promote the defensive coordinator of the staff they just fired, who has not coached in the league since, 2011? With the Chicago Bears?
Yeah.
Who hasn't had a winning record since his last year, 10-6 with the Chicago Bears?
Yeah.
Who consider Josh McCown as an actual head coaching candidate who has barely been an assistant at the high school level for 2 years?
I saw Josh McCown at Elite 11. I saw him coaching up quarterbacks next to Texans head coach.
The mad preacher, Jack Easterby, running the show? How are we forgetting about the Houston Texans in this?
They're very dumb. They're very dumb. And even to go back to the racially charged stuff who is the current owner of the Houston Texans? The son of...
Cal McNair.
Okay, but Cal McNair was the father, yes, that recently passed away?
Yes.
Okay, so the racially charged discussion of the inmates running the prison?
Inmates running the asylum, or was it the prison? Yeah, the phrase is inmates
Either
running
way,
the asylum.
You're calling your workforce inmates.
Yeah.
I mean, that in the middle of all this, I understand people don't like racial gaslighting and things like that. But no, that's just out there. He's just said the thing calling players inmates. That's good. That's lovely to have from your ownership structure on down. Bravo. It's honestly, I know Bill O'Brien gets a lot of jokes. It is astounding to me that Bill O'Brien had as much success in as many just bleep show places. He took over Penn State after Joe Paterno. They were relevant. They were relevant outside of the NCAA restrictions that were making them not relevant. They won the division, I think, 4 straight years in a row.
Yeah,
with Bill O'Brien.
Down, but yes, he did an excellent job, and obviously Deshaun Watson certainly helped.
Still, Bill O'Brien, I think, even as I like to poke fun at Bill O'Brien, and every time when they flash up to the coach's box at Alabama games when he's clearly just losing his mind about something, I think Bill O'Brien may not actually get enough credit as an NFL coach.
He'll get another job soon. Whether college or NFL.
He's in the Alabama coaching rehab program. It's inevitable at this point. Oh, speaking of inevitable, Why so long between calls? Darrington is in Nashville up next. Hello, my friend.
How's it going there, Buckster?
What's happening?
Oh, man, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. We keep talking about all these dumpster fires, and, you can name all these teams like the Cowboys, the Giants, and stuff of that nature. But let's say they say something stupid when you keep doing it over and over and you keep getting the same result and you don't change nothing.
Mm-hmm.
How about the Tennessee Titans? We've been running the ball for 20-plus years, and we've only ran to one Super Bowl appearance. Like, when is that going to change? Hey, we had a pep rally for a playoff game like we won the Super Bowl. How about that? Does that not count as retarded? Like what are you winning? I just want to know. Everybody, when everybody in the world, people don't even watch football, and they know you're going to run the ball, but you still do it anyway, and you get the same result as you always get. How dumb is that? Does that not count as dysfunctional?
Because I would consider the Titans a dysfunctional organization pre-John Robinson, right? Now, obviously, they've achieved a much higher realm of success. Thank you for the call, Darrington, 615-737-1045. Like, the Titans are one of the best. I mean, they have one of the best records in football since John took over the team among any franchise that you would name. Consecutive winning seasons. They have what now? 5 of them? 6 of them? Consecutive winning seasons under John Robinson. Mike Vrabel has never lost more than 7 games in any NFL season, and they have achieved the playoffs in 3 of those 4. 4 of the 6 seasons under J-Rob have they made the playoffs, including Mike Mularkey and Mike Vrabel. So they are on the other side of this, but I would consider the Tennessee Titans, like right when I first got here, Marcus Mariota's rookie season, Ken Wisenhunt was still the depths of this. The lack of front-facing ownership structure, nightmare scenario, so much so that the NFL was threatening to bring down some kind of punishment on them if they could not produce a controlling owner. And since then, things have really, really settled in nicely under Amy. Now, what you're talking about is philosophically. Philosophically, as far as the Titans are concerned, yeah, they certainly have a brand identity, right? Unbelievably good running backs, a style of play that connotes physical, upfront, bullying type of offense, and defense has always been a strength outside of 2020. So I don't know that I would consider that outright dysfunction because they have pulled themselves out of it. And teams go through cycles, right? Cleveland, I think, even as that sounds ridiculous to say right now, given the Deshaun Watson stuff, Cleveland, I think, has a path forward, but Jimmy Haslam's still the owner. Like, that is the thing. That's the ticking time bomb, for lack of a better term, that could completely upend any progress that they've made.
Well, you want to talk about dysfunction. Cleveland has a good team. That doesn't make them not dysfunctional. I mean, Matt Veradame laid this out very well. He's an NFL reporter for Fansided. He says the Browns traded a former number 1 overall pick who has their only playoff win since 1994 for a conditional 5th-round pick while eating salary, while also paying $230 million guaranteed to a player who might not play this year and is facing 4 civil suits. Brilliant strategy. Like you're talking
and
about,
that's down from 24.
You're talking about the Browns potentially wasting another year of Nick Chubb in his prime, Amari Cooper in his prime, Myles Garrett in his prime, Denzel Ward. I mean, you're talking about the Browns potentially wasting away a season here with all those guys on the books and Jacoby Brissett trying to limp your way to the playoffs, assuming Deshaun Watson is suspended for a full year, which is obviously not official.
Yeah, and we should have some clarity on that in the coming weeks. Yeah, it's a plan, though. Like, they clearly think they have a plan at quarterback. And that to me gives them an edge over a team like Carolina, which is kind of where we started with all of this. I have no idea what the hell the Carolina Panthers are doing. I have no earthly idea. Like, at least I can see the path that Cleveland is trying to take, even if I wildly disagree with what the move is.
Yeah.
I see that. And I mean, Andrew Berry is their general manager. He's like 35. Like, he is somebody who has been in that position and who, by the way, has been a big part of them writing what it is from a personnel standpoint and coaching that they have gotten wrong in the years leading up to that, where, an unhoused person tells Jimmy Haslam, yeah, you should draft Johnny Football, in all likelihood, having no idea who the hell Johnny Manziel is. And then all of a sudden he's your first-round pick and out the league. Throwing touchdown passes to who? T.O.? In that fan-controlled football thing? And T.O. catching passes from Johnny Football right now? What a mess. All right. Kevin is in Pleasant View, wants to talk about NFL dysfunction. Hello, Kevin.
Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for having me. There are quite a few teams out there that are dysfunctional, but you got to go with the Detroit Lions. And I was born in 1981, so I'll just get straight to the point. Wasted Barry Sanders' career. If the Detroit Lions would have put in their offensive line like the Cowboys put in the offensive line with him and Smith, we might not even be talking about this. When Matt Millen was the general manager, 3 first-round picks in 3 consecutive years, wide receiver, forced the Hall of Fame wide receiver to retire because they wouldn't treat him right. And then on top of that, Jim Caldwell was a winning coach.
Yeah.
He bring in Matt Patricia, and he tanked it. So when you talk about dysfunctional overall, looking at the Lions, they got to be number one with all the decisions and mistakes they've made over the years. And really like you guys' show and appreciate you for having me.
Thanks for the call, Kevin. 6-1. Look at that. They're making them all under 45 seconds
This
now.
is amazing.
What? just what? I still can't get over that. And then I'm going to talk about Kevin's point. I can't get over that sense of entitlement.
Well, Tony did, to his credit, kick all our other callers into gear, I guess.
Well, I don't know if Tony did it by nature. Tony did by nature of me being pissed off by how stupid a comment that was.
And he did mention that he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to keep watching because he enjoys the show.
Well,
so we appreciate you, Tony.
You're not going to kill me with kindness. I don't respond that way.
It's been a net positive so far.
Okay. Relax. Whose side are you on?
Both.
He came after you. I stuck up for you.
Play both sides. Come out on top.
How much do you think people still do dysfunction name association with Tennessee?
Are you talking about the Titans?
Yeah. Sorry. I know that's you're doing what people on the internet do.
Yeah, I don't know. Not anymore. I don't think you don't have a leg to stand on anymore with that discussion. You just don't.
Well, I mean, you do if you don't watch them, which has been the case, right? Like, I think there's still this kind of, I don't know at what point that stigma goes away. Like, I don't know how many times they have to just force themselves into the public consciousness because they keep making the playoffs to say, yeah, the Titans are no longer a wildly dysfunctional organization.
Yeah, only one other team in the league has had as many winning seasons as them in a row, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. I just don't know what argument anybody could possibly have for that.
Yeah, they don't watch them. It is crazy to think about and not to do, the back in my day kind of stuff. Because I know I saw a funny article written on The Athletic about like the 10 worst decisions in the last decade of Cowboys football. And I kind of wanted to play that game with the Titans because, one, negative stuff is always easier to do on sports talk radio. I'll be completely honest with you guys and up front there. But even going back, like you would have to flesh it out more to 15 years of dysfunction to kind of go through the worst decisions of the Titans, even though probably the worst decision in the last 10 years of the Tennessee Titans would be on John Robinson and Mike Vrabel's resume, which is, of course, the Panda, Isaiah Wilson. He's full stop the worst thing to happen in this organization in the last 10 years. I don't think there's any disputing that. I think Kevin Dodd probably has a seat at the table, too. But the Isaiah Wilson experience, I mean, that may well be one of the worst first-round draft picks in the history of football, just from how it played out. So I think that kind of stuff, maybe not to that extreme, exists in every organization, but I do think there's a pretty interesting sample size to kind of look at there. Let's go to Sterling, who's in Gallatin, up next. Hello, Sterling.
Thank you for taking my call. I want to nominate the Cowboys. I mean, I know I've heard it been mentioned several times, but since Jerry Jones bought the organization, he's a great owner, but as a GM, he absolutely sucks. I mean, all the great players that they've had, and they squander it because of the lack of accountability that he allows the coaches to get to their players.
Now, wait, Sterling, I don't want to cut you off in the middle of your point, but you said as a general manager he sucks, and there are some aspects of that job that I would probably agree with you on. But as far as the personnel decisions are concerned, Dallas stays accumulating talent. Like, they don't seem to have a problem in the scouting and acquisition of good players, right?
You're right. You're correct on that. But as hiring coaches.
Yeah, just management. Management.
Yes. management. The players are great. You have great players, but if they just have the like when they had Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells was a great coach, but because he was giving ability to the locker room, he was let go. So I just feel that the Cowboys is very dysfunctional until they get rid of Jerry Jones as a GM. They won't be a great team.
Thanks for the call, Corey. Jerry's not going anywhere.
Yep.
Jerry just made $1.4 extra billion off an oil deal. You remember us talking about that on Tuesday?
A coffee?
No, oil.
But they are under fire right now for that coffee sponsorship.
What? What are you talking about?
Oh goodness, what's the name of the coffee company that they that they're having sponsor them?
Oh, they have some kind of issue with a sponsor?
There's a little bit of controversy right now with them partnering with this coffee company. Black Rifle Coffee. That's what it was.
Okay, well,
the controversy was them partnering with Black Rifle Coffee in the immediate aftermath of the Independence Day shooting outside of Chicago.
Just because of the name?
The name and some of the different types of coffee that they have, the labels on the coffee. It's a veteran supported coffee brand that is very gun friendly, which obviously applies in Texas. But they're just they're being scrutinized a little bit for that because they put out that press release. Like Darren Rovell kind of went at them for putting out that press release one day after the shooting.
A press release?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's just a reading the room type situation.
Right, exactly.
And I'm unfamiliar with the company or what their policies may or may not be on gun rights and things like that. So that may be something that may just.
I agree.
I want to know a little bit more about it before I look at it and say, okay, that may just be a little bit of internet outrage.
No, it is the situation of, hey, read the room.
Yeah.
Understand what the reaction is going to be. Give it a few days before you put this out the day after this happens.
Yeah, and I'm not dismissing the severity of that. I'm just I don't know enough about the company because if there are policies that are problematic, then okay, fine. And I have not myself read the statement or the press release about the Cowboys' latest
it's essentially
coffee partnership.
A gun-themed coffee company that they are partnering with that they announced literally the day after the July 4th shootings.
Yeah, maybe you wait a minute on that. That's okay. Anyway, 615-737-1045. We're talking about dysfunctional NFL teams, and we can take your calls on this coming up next, as well as getting into a conversation about what happens with the group of 5 athletic programs as college conference realignment starts to kick up yet again. Mike Golic Jr. is going to be on with us to talk about this at greater length at 12:20, but we have a lot of ground to cover up until then. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great day on this Thursday. Buck Rising here with you until 1 o'clock. Quickly, before we get back into NFL dysfunction and then we start to talk about a different kind of dysfunction that has been a theme of the week, a very happy birthday to a new member of Roman Yossi's family. They just had a baby girl. Are we not going to do it?
To him. I don't care. Good luck.
How many different ways did we do that wrong? You have me talking over Stephen A.
Yeah, it was potted down.
You have
when I
it
hit the
faded
button.
down so people can't hear it. And then you don't bother to fade it down for the hymn welcoming Roman Yossi's baby girl into the world with Stephen A. saying, I don't care, good luck.
Congratulations to the man who should have won the Norris Trophy and his family.
Oh, goodness. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. Dysfunction in football, I think, is more prominent. I mean, it's like any business, right? It's kind of carried the theme. Like, you all have probably dysfunction in your workplace. We have dysfunction in our workplace. For God's sakes, do you hear how we do 3 hours worth of radio? It's a complete and utter bleep show. It's a clown show that we get to do from 10 to 1 every day.
Dysfunction is good for sports.
Oh, no, it's great. If we can make ourselves look foolish for the entertainment of the audience, swell, especially in July when there's bleep to talk about. 2, dysfunction in sports, continue to feed the machine, red meat, give it to me. Are you kidding me? I'm actively rooting for the institution that is college football to fall in on itself just so I can have mega conferences and TV executives running wild over bags and bags of money.
I maintain that the Tennessee coaching search was the best period of sports radio in Knoxville in the 21st century because of the dysfunction.
It's the only regret I have in my career is that I did not come into a daily talk radio show sooner during Shiano Gate to be able to experience what the hell that was like in our business. I wanted it so badly. But yeah, there's dysfunction everywhere. But I think people assume because of the money that's being made at the NFL level that these people operate at a higher plane than the rest of us.
They're all smart.
And I'm looking around. And there's a great quote from Dominique Foxworth. He does a commentary for ESPN now, but obviously a longtime corner in the NFL. Dominique Foxworth, who was a member of the Players Union, said that as a part of one of their negotiations, he went to sit down in a room with Jerry Jones. And after sitting down in a room with Jerry Jones, he left that room thinking, oh, he's not smarter than I am. He's just not smarter than I am. Corey in Hendersonville is next. Hello, Corey.
Hello, Buck. First of all, I just want to say I think it would be an honor for you guys to play me off with the music, but I'm not going to tempt you today.
No. Exceed the 60 seconds, and we will grant you your wish just because I feel like annoying people who don't like the music.
You're
today.
15 seconds in.
We are 15 seconds into the call. Proceed.
Okay, so I want to make a point on the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm from Georgia, so I'm a little bit biased when it comes to this, but they, in my opinion, are the most dysfunctional franchise, and it stems back to when they drafted Brett Favre. And people forget that. But they drafted Brett Favre and then traded him off, and look what he ended up becoming. You look at the coaching carousel that they've been through. The Bobby Petrino era was terrible. They drafted Michael Vick. They do a terrible job of vetting players.
Yeah.
The signings, the extensions with Matt Ryan, with Julio Jones, now the Calvin Ridley situation with him betting on football. I mean, and then on top of everything else, you have them blowing a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. You cannot get more dysfunctional than that, being the only team in history to blow a 25-point lead in the Super Bowl. Now, I could keep going on, but I just want to say that I really appreciate Lucas and Buck for playing the music so that I can hear it and feel like I won an Oscar.
Louder. Bravo, Corey. Well
That's
done.
good. It's a good call. Can I be honest with you?
What?
I had no idea the Falcons drafted Brett Favre. I am stunned. I just looked it up. In the second round, Atlanta head coach Jerry Glanville did not approve of the drafting of Favre. This is from Wikipedia, by the way, saying it would take a plane crash for him to put Favre in the game. His first NFL pass was a pick six against Washington.
That's right.
He attempted 4 passes in his one season in Atlanta, was intercepted twice and completed none of them, took one other snap, and it was a sack for an 11-yard loss. Oh, my goodness. I had
you didn't know?
idea that Brett Favre took snaps for the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, there's reasons that Falcons fans, I mean, just Georgia sports fans, up until recently, like Georgia winning the national title and the Braves winning the World Series. Yeah, Atlanta sports fans, Georgia sports fans, more specifically, have been a tortured group for a very, very long time. But it is so. I mean, we have some of these knowledge gaps, right? As a show, just because of our we skew a little bit younger just by nature of Lucas and I not yet reaching our 30s, either of us. When was Brett Favre drafted by the Atlanta Falcons?
91.
So that predates both of us.
Yes.
But I know enough about Brett Favre's history to know that he was drafted by the Falcons.
Oh, I've watched, I don't know how many hours of Brett Favre highlights in my life. I had no idea.
Have you seen more Brett Favre highlights, games, or Copper Fit commercials?
Ooh, highlights. Definitely highlights.
See, I think it's Copper Fit commercials.
I mean, I obviously remember the last few years of the Brett Favre era in Green Bay and then Minnesota.
Yeah, no way. There's a hot second with the Jets, right? And then I think he was a Viking in the middle of Bounty Gate, right? Because there was a playoff game.
No, he took the Vikings to the playoffs. With the Jets, I remember that very distinctly because he was the one that ended the Titans' unbeaten start to that 2008 season, I believe, where the Titans are 10-0. The year where they go 13-3, they're the 1 seed. They lose to the Ravens in the divisional game. Chris Johnson gets hurt. Brett Favre gave the Titans their first loss with the lowly Jets when the Titans were 10-0 that season.
Will on Facebook Live says, "Wow, I'm shocked that Lucas didn't know about the Falcons drafting Brett Favre." All right, so let's do it this way. Put it on the poll at Buck Rising, and we'll update the polls at the end of the show. What's the worst NFL knowledge gap? Lucas not knowing, however you need to condense this, Lucas not knowing that Brett Favre was drafted by the Falcons, or Buck not knowing that Drew Brees was drafted by the Chargers.
I knew that.
I did not know that. We were on the air for like a month, and I said that. Rhett Bryan came in and sat me down and talked to me. He goes, "There are people in their 60s and 70s listening to you on FM radio. If you tell them that you did not know that Drew Brees was drafted by the Chargers, they will never listen to you again." And that was, but it's true. I didn't know until Drew Brees retired that Drew Brees was drafted by the Chargers. I had no idea that was a thing. Anyway, 615-737-1045. Phil is in Portland, and then we'll move on with some college athletics discussion.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, brother. Hey, listen, I don't know if you'll say that they're most dysfunctional team, but I don't know, Buck, and I just want to get your opinion on how in the world did this happen with the 49ers and Jimmy G. I know that he had shoulder surgery, but how did they not know he was going to have shoulder surgery if they do the physicals on him? I mean, who do you think was at fault here? Where did the ball get dropped? Was it on the franchise that got screwed in it? Well, obviously they did, because now they can't get no picks for it. Did it hurt Jimmy going forward? I just look at this as a big old mess, and I'm just wondering where you think the fault ultimately lies on. So y'all have a blessed day. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the call, Phil. 615-737-1045. I think that what's happening with, all right, so the optics of what's happened in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson is obviously worse than what would cause Jimmy Garoppolo to no longer be the starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. But I believe that situation to be just as critical to get Jimmy the hell out of San Francisco. You cannot put him back out on the field if you're that team. And now that, to the caller's point, it was reported back in March that the trade conversations for Jimmy Garoppolo came to a screeching halt after the news broke that Jimmy decided to have surgery on his throwing shoulder. Now, he was due to have surgery on his throwing shoulder. So, in reading the quotes, this was from right before or right around free agency. The decision that was made for Jimmy to have surgery certainly caused a lot of teams to pause and at least slow down the process to do their due diligence. That's according to John Lynch, who, of course, is the 49ers general manager. Their situation is weird, man. Kyle Shanahan for as much as he is heralded, rightfully so, for his football acumen, their personnel decisions are perplexing to me. Everything that's happened with San Francisco, and they win anyway. I think Shanahan's career record, though, as a head coach is under 500 because they had some wretched teams early on at the start of his career there before they traded for Jimmy. But what's happening with Trey Lance just kind of chilling there, waiting to be the starting quarterback, and Jimmy Garoppolo, they not able to move him. I think it's a situation that's just as, if you're in that locker room, you're getting all kinds of missed messages, even as you understand that the circumstance is not necessarily something that the organization can do anything about because they botched it. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. What we've got for you coming up next, a really, really interesting report from the Los Angeles Times about why exactly UCLA absolutely had to jump ship out of the Pac-12, why it makes more sense for them as it will for many other programs in a similar light. Mike Golic Jr. is also going to be here at 12:20. Stick around. Final hour. That's next.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. The Nashville Predators 2022-23 regular season schedule came out on Wednesday. The 82-game slate will start in the Czech Republic against the San Jose Sharks. That is on October 7th and 8th before the home opener in Bridgestone Arena, October 13th against the Dallas Stars. The NHL draft begins tonight with the first round. The Preds currently hold the 17th pick. Coverage starts at 6 p.m. on ESPN. WNBA star Brittany Griner pled guilty this morning in a Russian court of law for bringing hashish oil into the country, telling the judge she had no intent of breaking the law. Griner has been detained since February. The Atlanta Braves are still hot, winning 3-0 over the Cardinals Wednesday. Austin Riley went 2 for 3 as the Braves remain 2.5 games back of the Mets in the NL East. They will look to sweep the Cardinals tonight at home at 6:20. Also, some college football conference realignment news. This reported by Braden Keith a couple of hours ago. A source telling him North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia are all negotiating to join the SEC, and that ESPN is looking to void their TV deal with the ACC. That has not yet been confirmed. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on a Thursday. Love to see it. Happy to have you guys in until 1 o'clock or however much longer your 104.5 The Zone consumption, I guess, takes you. Blaine and Mickey after us, 3HL on after that. But we got you for one more hour, a little less than that, throughout the course of today's show. My Golic Jr. going to be here. Is he on Zoom or is he on the phone?
He's on the phone.
Okay. We'll talk to Mike Golic Jr. in 15 minutes from now, so that'll be fun. There is some news that you heard Lucas Panzica mention that I want to, or alleged news, all right? Now, this is why it's important to be discerning on the internet. Because by the sniff test, if you're just somebody scrolling your Twitter timeline, the news that North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia are all negotiating to join the SEC, that would obviously catch your attention. Yes. The account reporting it is a verified account, which would lend it, I mean, maybe not as much credibility as the person with the blue check mark might think that it lends them, but at least it's a verified account. Now, this individual's name is Braden Keith. He is the co-founder and editor of something called Swim Swam News, also a verified account. I don't know Braden, I don't know his work, but I would look at this and say that his report, source, all caps, North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia all negotiating to join the SEC. He adds in this, ESPN is trying to void their television deal with the ACC. That's the thing that caught my attention as to whether or not this is 1,000%, trusted, true, and verified. Why on earth would ESPN want to void an incredibly favorable television rights deal when they still have 12 years left on the deal?
Yeah, this something doesn't seem right about this. I see Cole Thompson, too, college football reporter at Fan Nation, who has, not a little less than Twitter following than Braden Keith does.
I don't want to do the Twitter following.
I understand, but still, I mean, you're not seeing the Nicole Auerbachs and the Stuart Mandells and the Josh Pates of the world jumping on this. You're seeing more of Cole Thompson saying this is not true according to two different sources. It just doesn't add up. Plus, why wouldn't Miami be in the equation?
Yeah, why Virginia over? I guess theoretically you could count. Do people count Virginia as the South?
Oh, Virginia Tech would make sense. And I think the SEC it could get to the point where they're hunting flagships, right? Virginia is a flagship of the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
I think it would be a great fit. I think Virginia Tech would be a great fit in the SEC. But it seems odd to leave out Miami, and it seems odd that ESPN would go out of their way to avoid a TV deal that goes until 2036 instead of letting schools buy their way out of it.
Well, and even then, it's not as simple as buying their way out of it, because the grant we've talked about grant of rights and what that essentially means. The ACC as a conference granting their rights, their athletic television rights to ESPN. But a grant of rights is not necessarily the same kind of deal in place that the SEC, for example, has with ESPN and CBS. It's not necessarily called a grant of rights. So this grant of rights contract seems to have a different structure. And again, I have not seen the document myself, so I want to be careful as to what it may or may not contain. But apparently what it does consist of, based on people who are reporting this with actual credible knowledge of the contract itself, it sounds like a hell of a lot more difficult than just buying themselves out. Like, it doesn't sound like it sounds like there are protections in place for the network partner, this being ESPN, to say, yeah, if you sign this thing, like, you're not just going to be able to give us $100 million and cash out. Like, we're not down for that. So I'm curious to see how exactly this continues to evolve. But yeah, that would catch my attention. Not necessarily that those are the four institutions that would be negotiating to join the SEC, but that ESPN would try and void their own television deal. That the whole reason this is happening is because conferences know there's more money at stake. ESPN's not actively trying to pay more money for the rights. They're trying to keep the rights as manageable as possible, and given that they have 12, basically their hand on the ACC's neck for 12 more years, they're not going to pull the plug on that if they don't have to.
It's worth putting the report out there from a verified account, but it's also worth mentioning that virtually no other premier college football reporters are jumping on this.
Yeah, I struggle with that. Don Davenport, by the way, has proven a fact, or has brought to our attention which local sports personality is most likely to bring their own bowling ball to our show event at Brooklyn Bowl. Dawn does, in fact, have her own ball. Dawn has Dawn is a sneaky nominee for this, because Dawn also has talents in ventriloquism. Is that the puppet?
Yep.
That's what it's called. That's the technical term.
She's an athlete.
She is an athlete. I have seen documented footage of Dawn Davenport in an Auburn volleyball uniform on a court looking pissed off as hell. Like, I now know where that face comes from every time she disagrees with something that I have to say. She's got fire in her eyes because she used to just swat the living hell out of competition in the SEC playing as a volleyball player for Auburn.
So ultra competitive.
Yeah.
Man, Dawn would be a great fit. It's too bad they'll be out of town.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah. I would like to see Dawn. Dawn would probably be a nightmare out there at Brooklyn Bowl for this event that's coming up. By the way, you can still get tickets to that at 1045thezone.com. We're raising money for a charitable endeavor with the church at Mount Carmel. They put on a free summer camp for kids who do not necessarily have the financial means or opportunities to go to summer camp themselves when they're out of school and don't have the ability to do that. That's on Wednesday, July the 20th at 6 p.m. from 6 to 9 p.m. Nice. Not just nice, but the event is going to be great too. We're really looking forward to that. Ramon Foster is going to be hanging out with us. Darren Bates, Coach Dave McGinnis. We'll continue to keep you updated as to who will be joining us at Brooklyn Bowl, but tickets are still available at 1045thezone.com. So if you want to hang out, party, and bowl with us for a great cause, we would invite you to do so. You can get your tickets there. Okay. So let's put aside this news that is yet to be confirmed by people that we consider to be more credible at this point on who the SEC may or may not be negotiating with. Looking at the latest reporting from the Los Angeles Times, Ben Bulch of the Los Angeles Times had this report yesterday. UCLA faced uncertain future until the Bruins jumped to the Big Ten. Now, on face value, if I give you the brand of UCLA athletics, what comes to mind?
Basketball.
College basketball greatness, college basketball dominance. Given its perilous athletic department finances, according to this report, UCLA faced the prospect of cutting sports had the school not agreed to bolt for the Big Ten Conference. Their timing isn't certain, or the timing isn't certain, and the number of teams that would have been affected, isn't known. But the Bruins were headed toward what they call an Olympic sports Armageddon without a massive infusion of cash that will accompany its departure from the Pac-12 in 2024. So UCLA currently has 25 teams that they consider to be varsity sports, more than 700 athletes that now have their future secured, their scholarships, their athletic future secured, just by nature of UCLA making this move. USC, I'm sure, didn't have the same issue. But UCLA, who has a lot of these sports, it's going to make the cross-country flights and, frigid winter for those of them who compete in the winter in Big Ten country. It's going to make it much more palatable because they just saved, theoretically, probably close to half of their athletic department's programs. The deficit that they had been running, UCLA specifically, had run up to $102.8 million because of the nature of the Pac-12's television deal. And because of the fact that, things at attendance, like attendance at a UCLA football game, even as they had won, 8 games under Chip Kelly most recently last season. So it seems there's a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, 8-4.
Their athletic events are not well enough attended for them to not run not just a deficit, but a massive deficit, a $100 million deficit, that now they're going to get an extra influx of $100 million per year from the Big Ten and the potential and the inevitable, rather, media rights deal that's going to come about. If the expanded conference can snag the projected $1 billion media rights deal that it's set to begin with Fox in 2024. So UCLA, just say, you want to know why this kind of stuff is happening? Why the Pac-12 is caving in on itself? Just mismanagement, neglect for the things that matter most, and what matters most for the sustainability of these programs and for the athletes, whether you consider it necessarily I don't consider it to be a fair deal, but I consider it to be a necessary deal for the most amount of athletes to have the most opportunities to participate at the highest levels in Power 5 collegiate athletics. This was absolutely critical for a program like UCLA, for an athletic department like UCLA. And I bet there are plenty more Pac-12 schools and probably Big 12 schools who are in a similar situation because of just how much worse their television rights are. We're going to talk to Mike Golic Jr. about this. We're going to get his assessment of what Notre Dame needs to do, obviously having played at Notre Dame himself and having ties to the organization and people in it. And, Mike covers football on the whole on his podcast, Gojo. So we'll get his assessment of the latest news in the NFL, too. That's next.
The Buck Rising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Welcome back. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling making all of our conversations possible, including Mike Golic Jr., who will join us momentarily. He's been tweeting up a storm about his former employer at ESPN and the latest conversation being had around them. It's not, I won't call it reporting, but a source is being cited by Brandon Keith of an unknown publication, or a publication called Swim Swam News. Again, both have blue check marks, but that doesn't necessarily afford them ultimate credibility. What he's reporting is North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia are all negotiating to join the SEC, which if you saw that on face value, you would say, okay, like we're in this era of collegiate athletic departments and conference realignment anyway. That's not necessarily, given what the news cycle has been for the better part of, just a calendar year in college sports, you would say, all right, that news or that alleged news, North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia allegedly negotiating to join the SEC, that wouldn't be shocking to anybody. To negotiate is different than to join. But the second part of this report is where I think all credibility dies, where he says ESPN is trying to void their TV deal with the ACC. Mike Golic Jr., do you know ESPN to be willing to pay more money to buy themselves out of a current network deal? Do you know that to be so?
You know what? I can't claim to know all the inner workings of the worldwide leader in sports, but I could tell you that I would guess, and I think I just saw Kevin Clark from The Ringer tweet this, ESPN is pretty good at the whole sports business thing.
Yeah.
And voiding a contract, a TV contract that is extremely favorable to the network with the ACC probably isn't the way that you keep adding buildings to that campus in Bristol and leasing that space in New York and in Los Angeles. I think those things all stay up because you understand when you've got a good deal that other people may want to get out of.
Now, not only should you be following Mike Golic Jr., which you can, of course, do so at Mike Golic Jr., but you should be following his show, The Gojo Show, at Gojo Show on Twitter, whose account tweets college football Twitter letting the co-founder of a swimming publication send them into a tailspin has made for the perfect morning. It's been a bat bleep crazy year in college athletics anyway, Mike, basically from last July to this one. The most ridiculous headline that you've seen in this just seismic shift that we've seen in the sport that I know you and many others hold dear, what has been the most surprising or shocking or interesting headline to you? I'm sure all of those things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, I think it's still got to go back to Texas and Oklahoma. And while that may have had more tremors leading up to it than USC and UCLA, what it did was, I think, put everything in motion, because this doesn't happen with USC and UCLA without everyone being put on notice by Texas and Oklahoma. And remember, the ripple effects to that also affected college football playoff expansion, because then you had the alliance formed between the Big Ten, ACC, and Pac-12 to basically thwart the idea of playoff expansion before the current TV contract's up. So this was crazy because I think even fewer people knew about it, but what Texas and Oklahoma did started to set in motion what will be the changes we see in college football for the next decade.
Yeah, that really seemed, because then it became basically a pissing contest, right? How many more major name brands can you add to your conference to continue to make your portfolio look better as they negotiate over billion with a B, media rights deals between ESPN and Fox and any other major network, NBC now, when you consider what Notre Dame's situation currently is and how that may evolve in the near future. The whole thing has been fascinating to me to see that ripple effect. And now what becomes of what we know of Power 5 conference athletics. I know college football drives a lot of this, and I think it's difficult for people to kind of widen their scope outside of college football because that is the thing that most of us traffic in the most often. But what this means from your standpoint, Mike, I can't imagine how that kind of changes what you know to be the institutions of college athletics.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, and it's unfortunate because
during the conference move by, let's say, USC and UCLA, I saw a lot of well-meaning people asking questions about how this does affect other sports on those campuses. And like, I have to gently say, none of the people making decisions about that care. Like, these are decisions made by dollars and cents. And that's what I think everyone needs to, like, hopefully realize now, because what we've seen since NIL started becoming a thing, since really players continued to get rights in general between that and the transfer portal, that people talked about that as this thing that would be the undoing of college athletics as we know it. And I think that really misunderstood the power people think players have in the landscape of college athletics. It is extremely minimal. It's like that old gambling PSA where the kid says to his dad, "I learned it by watching you." The reason players know to go after the money is because they have been watching as the world around them in college athletics has grown the coffers sky high with these TV deals and everything. So this was always going to be the thing that did it. And now the rest of college athletics is sort of going to have to figure this out as it goes. And so it'll be interesting, because it's certainly, we've talked about since the pandemic, the stress on athletic department budgets with a TV deal, the likes of which we're talking about for the Big Ten. Maybe that eases some of that burden on those other programs, but they're going to need it, because now you're going to have programs with a larger geographical footprint. You're going to need to make things like, a little bit more convenient. We were lucky as a team at Notre Dame to charter all of our flights.
Right.
Not everyone gets that. And so you're going to have to start to consider more of these things as you fill the coffers with all this TV money, because you are in some ways making the student athlete experience a lot more difficult for players on teams that don't drive the money and aren't a part of the decisions that are being made.
Mike Golic Jr. here with us on 104.5 The Zone, the Gojo Show. Episodes available daily. His latest with Jeff Schwartz on breaking down the Pac-12 realignment. I haven't had the opportunity to listen to it yet, but I know how good Jeff is and I know how good Mike is, so I know that's going to be a critical conversation for anybody who wants to get in on the nitty-gritty of the details of this stuff. Mike, in looking at this, you brought up the idea of athletic departments operating at a deficit, and I don't know whether you've seen the Los Angeles Times reporting of just how big the deficit for the athletic department at UCLA was, running a $102.8 million deficit over the course of the last couple of years, and now getting an influx, theoretically, of $100 million in cash, for that. Mike apparently dropped in the middle of that question. Basically, the LA Times report on UCLA, Mike, did you see it?
I have not yet, no.
Okay, so UCLA, you brought up the idea of athletic departments operating at a deficit. And what the LA Times had yesterday, UCLA's athletic department had run up a $102.8 million deficit that projected to only get worse under the school's both sagging football attendance and what the Pac-12 media rights deals were currently paying out. That turns from a $102.8 million deficit to the Bruins potentially on this $1 billion media rights deal, $100 million per year for them to right the ship. I don't know that there's a better case study with a pretty famous brand name that people could turn to and be like, okay, I actually get what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and so you know what? Like, we look at that and go, all right, well, no one's really going to cry poor for a lot of these institutions, even when we hear that, because it's amazing how so many of these athletic departments that we hear operating at a deficit can still come up with forkloads of money when they need to fire a coach and pay the buyout.
Sure.
So we know that's a part of college athletics. But, all right, let's say this does do some good for those schools. Then the problem becomes now, all right, we're starting to see a lot of schools and a lot of programs deal with the reality that if college sports is changing as we know it, and some of those Power 5 schools that are near the bottom of their conferences, the group of 5 schools that still comprise FBS football, Division I football as we know it, are looking around going, all right, where exactly do we fit in this, right? Like the Pac-12 just gave the green light to negotiate a new media rights deal, knowing it's probably not going to be worth as much now that USC and UCLA are out of that brand that you can offer. So all the rest of these schools may be looking at some of the deficits they face, the way that affects the way they run their programs, and looking at an even bigger squeeze coming. So this is just another widening of the gap between the haves and the have-nots that's always existed, but is being more and more pronounced as we go along this way.
What the hell do you do with Group of 5 schools? Mike, we got one right down about 45 minutes down the road in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee State. What on earth do you do? And that's a more sustained, a successful athletic department, even across the kind of issues that every facet of business has faced in the last couple of years. What on earth do you tell MTSU Blue Raider fans and institutions like that play in a conference like CUSA?
Yeah, and I mean, God, at a time where the Group of 5 watched a team of theirs finally make it to the college football playoff and may have thought we're making up some ground finally, like, let this be a reminder of the way that this all works in college sports. I mean, listen, FCS football still puts on a season and still puts on a postseason that is noteworthy, that crowns a champion, that we've seen grow brands like North Dakota State that's become the dominant power at that level. And there was always conversation that as the Power 5 breakaway thing that we all, as we tried to slander the NCAA out of existence, said, oh, the P5 can just break off and do its thing. That always kind of left this idea of maybe the Group of 5 doing its own version of a playoff and a championship, doing its own version of that with maybe you get some crossover out of conference stuff with the P5 still, but it seems like, far down the road, like this is, I think, still a decade out, that major realignment where we truly have something like this breaking away. But I think at that point, the Group of 5 teams that aren't going to try and push to jump to that next level might have to find a way to do their own thing and get comfortable with that.
Mike Golic Jr. at Mike Golic Jr. is where you can follow him. Check out the Gojo Show, available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm sure. How many interviews have you done specifically just about Notre Dame? Like where they bring you on, they ask you 10,000 Notre Dame questions, and then they throw you away for you just to do the next Notre Dame interview. How many have you done?
You know what? The limit does not exist on that. And it started with my mentions. My phone's basically been melting since that initial report broke. And I just appreciate the level of access to Jack Swarbrick that people think I have in the Notre Dame universe.
What's the most ridiculous? Like we deal with conspiracy theory in sports all the time until one like, Tom Brady potentially owning a part of the Dolphins doesn't happen, and then we all kind of shrug our shoulders. Like that's way too much detail for us to actually think about that as a conspiracy theory. What's the most ridiculous college athletics conspiracy theory you've had lobbed at your face recently?
Well, you know what's interesting to me, and I would say it's less a conspiracy theory and more just for me, like I struggle to find the reason why, is people have been asking me if Notre Dame would consider joining the SEC. And I've always looked at that one. One, the SEC hasn't indicated that they're really actively looking to take on new members, despite some of the reports and rumors that we see out there. We know they're going to be one of the two conferences left. My thought process is just from Notre Dame's standpoint, all right, if we're really doing the two mega conference thing, what can the SEC offer them that the Big Ten can't, that fits Notre Dame almost better in every way, right? Two of your biggest rivals of all time in Michigan and USC would now be in conference in the Big Ten. Geographically, it would actually help the majority of the rest of your non-football sports travel-wise, being in that area with some geographical rivalries that have already existed. And remember, traditionally, Notre Dame, for its independence, while they have had a great TV partner in NBC, they have traditionally left money on the table in order to maintain that independence. So it's not like going for the highest dollar amount that's on the table if we say, hey, the SEC might be able to offer that eventually, has ever really been the sole driver for Notre Dame's decision-making. So that one was interesting to me because, there's a lot of good in the know people that have asked me that question just because of, it's all about power and brands at this point. None of the rest of that stuff matters. Like Notre Dame would very much be having its cake and eating it too in the Big Ten scenario in this. And that's why I just struggle to see any advantage to the SEC option.
Well, it's interesting because I was listening to your colleague Jessica Smetana talking about this the other day on the Levitard show. I can't remember the title of the book that she was reading about the history of Notre Dame football, but basically that that Notre Dame had initially wanted to be a part of the Big Ten, but because of anti-Catholic biases at the time, they were not initially accepted by the other institutions that consisted of the Big Ten. It's a pretty interesting way for all of it to come full circle. And as you said, for Notre Dame to be able to have its cake, eat it too, and, to be able to buy all of the cakes for the rest of time.
Yeah, and this is a reminder, Notre Dame wins because of prestige, money, and I think the recent success helping out here, right? But as we sit here now and look at it, and I saw Pete Thamel mention this in a column that he wrote about all of the realignment going on, where for a time, especially remember around the pandemic, when Notre Dame was sitting there without a conference and potentially without games, and everyone said the ACC needs to squeeze them so they're forced to join a conference, and everyone's always wanted Notre Dame to join a conference and play a big boy schedule, blah, 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 blah. We are now in the post-that era ever. Because as Pete pointed out, there's no world where, let's say, the SEC is going to allow anyone to try and squeeze Notre Dame, because if they try and squeeze Notre Dame out of the playoff picture, it seems like Notre Dame would join the Big Ten. That would strengthen a rival of the SEC's and make that conference more powerful, more lucrative, more financially attractive. And Greg Sankey's not dumb. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't knowingly strengthen an opponent there just in the name of keeping a brand that everyone in big-time college football right now, where this has become about brands, the best national TV product you can possibly put out there. There is no world where leaving Notre Dame out of that benefits anyone financially. And that's why Notre Dame's going to be involved in whatever happens next. And right, wrong, or indifferent, however much that ticks people off, it is the combination of both history and 5 straight double-digit win seasons that's put them on the cusp and kept them in the conversation in a meaningful way. So that's the reality of the situation with Notre Dame, and that's why they're in the best position of anyone as far as what's gone on here in the last week or so.
Mike Golic Jr. here with us on 104.5 The Zone. It's not a question, Mike. I turned on the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, and I was sad because you weren't there. It made me sad. I love Jason Fitz. I love him with all my heart, but it made me sad that you weren't there.
The most FOMO I have had so far after leaving ESPN, bar none. I saw Fitz down there covered in hot dog bits and water in the splash zone, and I never thought that would invoke jealousy in my heart.
It's always a pleasure, buddy. Gojo, the show. Check it out wherever you get your podcast. New episodes daily. A lot of smart conversations being had with a lot of people who understand how this works at a much different level. Thank you, Mike.
Buck, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Mike Golic Jr. there with us on 104.5 The Zone. Yeah, the SEC Notre Dame stuff, while you know, in theory, I think on a lowest common denominator level, I think there were ways to kind of justify it in people's heads, right? Because just brand acquisition. Alabama, Notre Dame. Florida, Notre Dame. Tennessee, Notre Dame, right? Like, those are massive games. Those are massive television properties. But, I mean, the Big Ten's going to get more money. And, you know, whomever is next, right? It's going to turn into quarterback contracts in the NFL. Whomever's deal is up next is going to get the most amount of money, unless you're Larry Scott with the Pac-12, and you just bleep the whole thing. You poop the bed, right? I want to see Notre Dame in the Big Ten, just because I think at a certain point, because of how much more decentralized consumption of Notre Dame games is going to get, they're already putting some of those games on streaming, right? They were doing that with Drew Brees and Mike Tirico. The lesser important, the lesser draws, NBC was just kind of putting them on Peacock, right? They started that for the first time this year. What I think now, Notre Dame, I mean, Mike just articulated it better than I could. I would just be regurgitating what he said. This makes sense for them geographically. It makes sense for them monetarily. It is a fantastic acquisition, should it happen, and likely will happen, for the Big Ten.
The rivalries they'll get to keep.
The rivalries that they get to keep, as he mentioned, Michigan and USC. The logistical ease on the student athletes, because now you're talking about Indiana and Purdue just in your own state. You're basically already up there by Michigan and Michigan State. You make your life so much easier when you're not having to account for, okay, you're going to go, maybe you'll get USC at home this year, but you still got to fly out to California in the middle of the year to go play Stanford, because that's the kind of stuff that would add. And by the way, what else does Notre Dame recruit? I think that's as big of a conversation as anything. What else does Notre Dame recruit to an asset like the Big Ten? Does Stanford, who has those kind of rivalries, who is probably operating at, I don't know what their operating budget is at Stanford athletically, but I don't necessarily know that it would be that much different than a program like UCLA, right? Where attendance has suffered, the product has suffered, and you have many Olympic sports to pay for, and your football program isn't covering it the way that it used to. What else does that recruit for a brand like the Big Ten, for a property like the Big Ten, that brings more of those rivalries in and also eases logistical burden on UCLA and USC. It's crazy stuff. I love this. This is as invested as I've been in college football in my entire life.
It's like playing Monopoly.
It really is.
I am ready to talk about actual football, though.
Don't go past go. Don't go past go. Don't go past go. Either way. Polls are next. Welcome back. Now, we told you a bunch of times about a really cool event that we've got coming up. We want to make sure you're involved. We would be grateful for you to be involved, as a matter of fact. 104.5 The Zone brings you the Split Happens Bowling Bash at Brooklyn Bowl, Nashville on Wednesday, July the 20th. We want you to join us for a night that you don't want to miss as we host an evening raising money for the church at Mount Carmel's Youth Summer Camp at Brooklyn Bowl. We're going to have special guests for an incredible night of fun and bowling, all to benefit charity. You can get your tickets today at 1045thezone.com. So, we know that Ramon's going to be there. We know that we're going to be there. We know that Coach Mac's going to be there. We know that Darren Bates and the Raw Roo crew are going to be there. If you have a person or persons that you would want to come and attend, Josh Black, by the way, our buddy Josh Black, the comedian, going to come hang out with us too. I want you to start peppering people on the internet, if you're within the sound of my voice, of people that you want here locally to show up at this bowling event because we're raising money for charity. Odds are I've already texted them and harassed them either to show up, to donate money, or to donate something for the raffle, because you're going to get raffle tickets with your ticket. There's concerts in there. There's all kinds of cool prizes. If you purchase a ticket, it's 21 and up, so you got to be able to drink, or you got to be legal to drink. You don't have to drink if you don't want to. I'm going to drink. You don't have to if you don't want to. They're going to have food for you included in your ticket. You're going to get 3 hours of bowling. It's like $15. It's like $30 an hour.
Yep.
To bowl at Brooklyn Bowl. So what we're giving you for the price of the ticket, which is $60, 3 hours worth of bowling, free shoe rental, free food, 2 drink tickets, and you get a raffle ticket for all the cool prizes that we're going to have there. And, of course, for charity. By the way, you can write that off on your taxes. If you are somebody who just needs a little extra motivation to be a decent human being, we would love for you to do it out of the goodness of your heart. But if you want a tax write-off, we got that for you, too. 1045thezone.com is where you go to purchase tickets. We good? Polls.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed and the votes have been tallied, it's time for a poll update. And he's a good boy. Buck Rising show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
In honor of James Caan, who passed away today. What was the age?
R.I.P. 82 years old.
82 great years, many fantastic films, just a little longer. All right, now to the club.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, powered by Ford, driven by people. You can custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They will deliver it to you when it gets manufactured. Does Joshua Dobbs have a shot to start for the Browns in 2022? 57% say no.
Yeah, I think that's a no. But, Ramon's point is a valid one. There's just not been reps for him to be able to improve in live game action. Now, I'm sure there are some physical limitations as far as Josh Dobbs' skill set is concerned, but I do think that's a fair point. Jacoby Brissett, Jake Brisket, has been afforded far more opportunities. I can't remember. Brisket a second-round pick? Third-round pick?
Oh, gosh.
At NC State?
Yeah, it was Florida, then he transferred to NC State.
Yeah.
And then played for the Patriots, the Colts, the Miami Dolphins, the Browns.
Either way, for some reason, people are content to let the Jake Brisket experiment continue to play out on the field of play. And I don't see what the problem is with letting Josh Dobbs have a little run. Maybe I'm biased.
Ramon contended Dobbs was behind Big Ben, who was also behind Mason Rudolph. Dobbs was never able to surpass Rudolph, right? If I'm not mistaken, as that number 2 quarterback.
No, I mean, was Ben hurt? Did he have some kind of issue where you had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph out there starting substantial games?
Myles Garrett's swinging helmets at Mason Rudolph. Big Ben's on the roster when that happened.
That's right. I forgot. Assault.
How could we forget? Which team shows more dysfunction? Browns or Panthers? 91% still saying the Browns.
Yeah, historically, yes, the Browns. But I contend that the Panthers are not nearly as functional as you guys want to give them credit for.
Who is the biggest threat to the Buccaneers in the NFC South? The Saints, the Panthers, or the Falcons? 73% say it's the Saints. 13% say Panthers. 14% Falcons.
You have this weird obsession with the New Orleans Saints. I don't know what to do with that.
It's not an obsession. The way you just totally dismissed them yesterday, I had a problem with, because the Saints have a really good roster.
No, the best argument for the Saints is that Jameis had LASIK. That's the only substantial thing that people can come up with. Their defense has been great for years, and they haven't done. I mean, they've done winning of consequence, but like the defense has been great for years. That's not a new thing with the New Orleans Saints. They're still not better than the Bucs. Get out of here.
What do you think Jameis Winston's touchdown to interception ratio was in 7 games started last
I'm sorry,
season?
are you trying to do show in the middle of the polls? No.
I want you to tell me. What do you think it was? How many touchdowns, how many picks?
For Jameis?
Yes.
In 5 games.
In 7 games.
7 games of Jameis Winston. I would say that Jameis Winston had 10 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
It was 14-3.
Okay.
He is a total wild card at the quarterback position.
Wild card! Yeah! Oh my God!
What the hell is that?
That's the Saints staff every time Jameis Winston attempts a pass in New Orleans. But I contend that the Saints, who, by the way, are undefeated against Tampa Tom in the regular season, should not be written off the way you wrote them off yesterday.
Playoffs. Tom, you know when Tom won? He ended Drew Brees' career. He broke that brittle old man and his limp arm over his knee, and then he went on to win the Super Bowl. The most competitive game that Tom Brady played en route to winning the Super Bowl that year was against Taylor Damn Heineke. Out of here with the Saints.
Which group of 5 team in college football could be the most attractive in conference realignment? Michael says your mom, so thank you for that, Michael. Chris says Boise State, which I think has been a common option.
You
for a lot of
thanking
people.
Michael on behalf of my mother?
No, thank you, Michael, for that submission.
Okay.
Boise State.
Yeah, Boise State's good.
Probably the answer.
Boise State had one of their worst. I mean, they have consistently won 10 games. I mean, really, year over year, they've had a good program, even as there's been some defection. Obviously, coaches have gotten better jobs coming out of Boise State. They've produced talent at the pro level. Boise State seems like a reasonably attractive option.
Yeah, they were 7-5 under Andy Avalos, who replaced Brian Harsin last season. But academically, I don't know that they will live up to the Pac-12 standards, but Pac-12 probably needs to lower standards if they want to survive as a conference.
No more standards.
Which local sports personality is most likely to bring their own bowling ball to our show event at Brooklyn Bowl, July 20th? You can find tickets at 1045thezone.com, plus more information. Derek says 100% Dawn Davenport. She is too competitive to not ensure herself every advantage. And as you mentioned earlier, Dawn says, boom, I do in fact have my own ball and shoes.
Yeah, turns out that we were right. No, we said Ramon. Dawn's an upset. Although Dawn's not really an upset. Dawn has things like that you would not expect Dawn Davenport to have, but it just makes all the sense.
Jimmy says Joe Dubin, Big Joe on the go, would be most likely to show up with his own ball.
Joe has tweeted me. He said, sadly, Buck doesn't follow me anymore on here, so I'm not invited. I don't know when the hell. I mean, Joe's had his Twitter account hacked like 3 different times, so it's probably just another Joe account that I haven't followed yet. He's so sensitive.
By the way, the answer is Kirby Allen Kirby.
You go, JoJo. Yes, Kirby Allen Kirby absolutely has his own bowling ball.
What is the worst NFL knowledge gap? Buck not knowing that Drew Brees was drafted by the Chargers, or me not knowing that Brett Favre was drafted by the Falcons? 83% say you.
All right, so I looked it up. 2001 through 2005, Drew Brees was on the Chargers. So that was 1st through 5th grade for me.
Yeah.
I probably didn't watch a full NFL season until at least high school.
I'm younger than that, and I remember that.
Yeah,
I'm younger than you, and I remember that.
Listen, like I said, I did not grow up in a household with sports. Sports meant absolutely nothing to my parent.
Yeah.
My mom. So
Joseph Green says one event took place in both of your lifetimes. One did not. End of discussion.
Yeah, no, it's fair. I have overwhelmingly lost that poll. I still to this day don't know how I missed that 5-year stretch of Drew Brees being drafted and playing well for the Chargers as a starting quarterback. But then that led to my beloved Phillip Rivers and all of his weird faces and non-cussing cussing. That's the polls.
Those are the polls.
That's the show. We're done on a Thursday. Blaine and Mickey, I got you next.